Chapter 4:10. The group of people didn't leave just like that. Some people, like Luo Nan, had already unloaded their peripheral equipment due to the haste of the incident just now. Others hadn't. Even if they wanted to leave, they had to finish their business. The room was in a mess. But no matter how chaotic it was, everything was in accordance with Luo Nan's will. It didn't matter what Chen Weiken said at this time. It was meaningless. Chen Weiken did not look too good. His failure to control the field was secondary. The most crucial problem was that his target, Yin Lu, had clearly been affected by Luo Nan. She was a bit absent-minded and probably had thoughts of leaving. Chen Weisan's thoughts spun rapidly and he decided to make some slight adjustments. He took advantage of the fact that Luo Nan had yet to leave the room to greet him. "Fellow student, I remember that you're also a student of our school. Regarding this matter, I think we should maintain close communication." Chen Weisan's memory could be considered excellent, but it was useless. In any case, Luo Nan had no intention of cooperating with this person. His gaze streaked across Chen Weisan's face, and he used his chin to point at Zhu Maoshuan, who was still accumulating rage points. "Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. As long as we remember him, we don't care about anything else. You guys talk." F***CK. Zhu Maoshuan couldn't take the provocation. He stomped his feet and wanted to hit someone, but the police were right in front of him. His group of friends were afraid that he would suffer a loss, so they pulled him back one after another. Luo Nan was disinclined to pay attention to the fuss over there. He walked straight over. Chen Weiken inexplicably moved his body to the side when faced with Luo Nan's gaze, giving him some space. However, it was difficult for him to correct himself. One figure after another followed, including Tian-Si. This beautiful subordinate who had been working by his side for many years was gone. She walked past him expressionlessly. "You're playing this game too?" Chen Weiken felt an impulse and said in a commanding tone, "Tian-Si, stay here." Just last weekend, when he spoke like this, Tian-Si still showed the respect of a subordinate. Now, Tian-Si was indeed reacting. She paused and turned sideways, as if by instinct. But in the next second, she retracted her gaze and completely ignored Chen Weikan, who was right in front of her. She pointed at the police officer who had not spoken for a long time. "Mr. Officer, have you gone through all the procedures?"
"Yes."
"According to our previous agreement, as long as the relevant party issues an explanation, the guardian can wait until the injury examination is finalized before considering whether or not to notify the guardian." The police officer had been ignored for a long time. Finally, someone seriously asked for his opinion, and his attitude was very good. "Yes, as long as you remember to follow the police's request and provide a timely explanation, it'll be fine."
"Thank you."
Tian-Si bowed politely and left. From start to finish, he didn't even look at Chen Weikan. Chen Weisan's face darkened visibly. He subconsciously raised his arm, wanting to do something, but with a bunch of people watching him, this embarrassing action was eventually controlled. Luo Nan was the first to go out, but he had a clear understanding of the events that occurred afterwards. He had a guess in his heart. Chen Weikan was more or less autonomous, but he seemed to know very little about the inner world. Perhaps he had just come into contact with this domain, or perhaps he had been on the fringes for many years. The latter was more likely. Looking at the connections, this trap targeted at Yin Lu and the human-faced arachnid was certainly organized. The possibility of him being from the military was higher. Chen Weisan's background was also closer to the military. Since that was the case, it was best to ask Yi Yueyin about the relevant questions. But up until now, there had been no reply from the temporary mission window. The sound of footsteps approached from behind, and Tian-Si took 2 quick steps to catch up. Her attitude was different from the cold and aloof one in the room. She was a bit nervous right now. She called out, "Junior," but she probably felt that it wasn't too appropriate. She ended up cutting it short. Luo Nan's mind was like a clear mirror. He knew that it wasn't easy for Tian-Si to decisively choose a side after years of resistance. Even though this kind of decisive choice was a bit too much. He didn't have any ill feelings toward Tian-Si. Moreover, he felt a bit apologetic because of the matter at Ocean Sky Cloud City. He didn't want Tian-Si to be overly worried and fearful, so he turned his head and smiled to comfort her. Then he thought of Chen Weisan's position in the school. He was afraid that Chen Weiken would make things difficult for Tianxi later, so he said, "Senior sister, you're about to take the postgraduate exam. It's fine to let go of some school affairs." His words were simple, but Tianxi misunderstood. She immediately said, "I'll resign from my position in the Mutual Assistance Society when I get back."
Holy crap!
Luo Biao, who had followed them out, gasped in surprise. He couldn't help but move closer to Mo Peng's ear. "Hey, Nanster, you're a big shot now?" Mo Peng had been stupefied for a long time. He was affected by the atmosphere back in the room, so he unconsciously followed them out. Now he came to a realization. Why was it that when Nanster moved, half the people in the room followed him? It must be known that practically everyone here was older than Luo Nan. Not to mention Tianxi, Xie Junping and Hu Huaying were even cadres of the student council. Their family backgrounds were quite extraordinary. But these people all had Luo Nan as their axis. They naturally didn't have a trace of reluctance. This didn't make sense. Mo Peng was stupefied when Mo Han, who was accompanying Chiu Peipei, called, "Is everything all right over there?"
No.
Actually, Mo Peng didn't know whether or not this counted as an issue. Mo Han believed him. She just told him, "Yu Qin just asked me for Luo Nan's number. Is the police's judgment leaning more toward us?"
Yeah.
"If you want it, then you want it. If you don't, then it'll be too late."
Huh.
Luo Nan heard the conversation between Mo Peng and the others clearly from up front. This gave him a reminder. He immediately discussed with Papercut in a low voice, "Mo Han and the others are still in the hospital. Take them away. Don't stay here any longer." Papercut was startled. He finally felt that Luo Nan wanted to leave. Aside from not wanting to cause trouble, there seemed to be some special considerations. "Is something the matter?" This message was sent to the temporary mission window. Cat Eyes and Xue Lei could see it, and their gazes immediately shot over. Luo Nan also responded from the mission window, "That B+ rank doesn't seem to be here purely for a meal." In reality, there was certainly some other plan. It was just that Luo Nan didn't want to talk about the details of the human-faced arachnid and the blood flame order. Papercut didn't know this. He asked, "It's not targeted at us, right?" "It should be." Luo Nan sensed something before Papercut could fall. The B+ rank burner was still searching, but the direction of his mental smoke was no longer in the Abyss region or the polar domain. Instead, he quietly turned back to touch the area where their group was located. What was going on? Did he start to change his train of thought because he couldn't find the human-faced arachnid? That side was quite confident in their source of information. Luo Nan's lips curled. He was worried that the Wraith sign would hide in the polar domain for too long, creating unnecessary misunderstandings for Yin Lu. Since the burners had changed their train of thought a step ahead, Luo Nan took advantage of the situation. He pulled the Wraith sign out of the polar domain for a breather. It was the same as playing hide and seek. As it turned out, Luo Nan's choice was extremely timely. Yin Lu was clearly a bit restless in the luxurious room at this time. The appearance of Luo Nan and the other members of the Xia City branch had already made her vigilant. The human-faced arachnid's ambiguous attitude put a great deal of pressure on a newbie like her. The human-faced arachnid's clone promptly returned to its normal area, allowing Yin Lu to let out a secret sigh of relief. However, she was a priest who had cultivated for a long time. She more or less had some intuition. The slight disharmony she experienced over and over again formed a rather negative psychological suggestion. It made her want to retreat spontaneously. These changes were all reflected subtly in the living starry sky. How interesting. Luo Nan subconsciously grinned. He wasn't a heart-reading demon. He was unable to see through Yin Li's specific thoughts, but he was able to observe all sorts of details, piecing them together to form an approximate judgment. Right now, Luo Nan relied on his mental senses to deeply enter the vast material plane and the mental plane. He had a rough grasp of the picture of life of tens of thousands of living beings. From this, he formed a relatively abstract living starry sky. He could feel the minute changes created by various factors, such as emotions. As his observation experience grew and his understanding of the development of the situation deepened, the layers, angles, and details that he had unconsciously overlooked in the past gradually gained practical significance. He could more easily organize and generalize, forming a comprehensive, three-dimensional, and intuitive picture of observation. It was like playing a map cheat and playing a strategy game with a group of opponents submerged in the fog of war. There was a sense of superiority in beating him up in all aspects. Of course, if Luo Nan truly believed that he was beating him up in all aspects, it could only mean that Luo Nan had lost his mind. A B+ rank burner. An organized and premeditated action trap. This was the tempo of the base's technology tree rising to the top. If the other party really wanted to make things difficult for him, then he could just use his normal attacks to blow up this side. At this stage, Luo Nan could only play 2 games of hide and seek. Then he would run as far away as he could until the game ended. Pay attention to the one in front. Papercut suddenly sent a warning from the temporary mission window. His gaze is unfriendly. Luo Nan's mind temporarily withdrew from the macroscopic picture. He raised his eyes to look forward. Right now, the group of people were about to enter the elevator in the lobby of the amusement park. And at the edge of the crowded entrance stood a 30-year-old youth. He released his aura, completely unrestrained. He was a burner. This life sketch looks very familiar. Luo Nan quickly confirmed that this person was the one following the B+ rank powerhouse. Perhaps it was because of the strong first impression, but this person's ramrod straight figure looked very much like a soldier, even though he was dressed in casual clothes. This person didn't avoid the gazes of Luo Nan and the others, but he didn't respond either. His gaze swept past their faces one by one, and he just watched quietly. He was like a relatively eye-catching passerby. It looks like he's counting heads? This person seems a bit inexperienced. He's a lackey. A few ability users were discussing in private when Xie Junping suddenly came over and whispered, "He's Zhu Ling. I just saw his photo. There's no mistake." Really? Luo Nan was a bit surprised, but he did see traces of a silhouette that was similar to Zhu Maoshuan's from this person's face. Zhu Ling didn't have that much of an evil aura compared to his cousin. However, his gaze was calm and straightforward. It made people a bit unhappy when they stared at him. The group of people still hadn't figured out how to deal with this when the mission window suddenly flickered and jumped. He Yuein, who hadn't replied all this time, contacted them through instant messaging. Luo Nan and the others greeted her one after another. "Sister Yuein." "Hello, Secretary." From the video, it could be seen that He Yuein was multitasking. She was contacting someone. Her brows were slightly furrowed, and she wasn't in a good mood. She hung up after several seconds and focused on this side. "Apologies, Mr. Luo. Apologies, everyone. I just saw this, but there's a matter that just so happens to be related to you." Without any pleasantries, He Yuein sent over an electronic file. The format was extremely formal, and it clearly bore the authority seal of a government department. He Yuein explained further. The Xia City Police and military received a reliable tip that traces of the human-faced arachnid's clone were discovered in the vicinity of Cloud City Water Village. They decided to launch a search operation at the last minute. According to the agreement they reached with the society a month ago, they hope that the nearby members of the society will cooperate. It can't be. Xia City hasn't been swept clean yet? Shuelei had confronted the human-faced arachnid head-on before. He had a deep impression of the formless and shadowless demon. He immediately drew in a cold breath. Papercut was more concerned with practical issues. Did they say how to cooperate? He Yuein opened the electronic file and indicated to Luo Nan and the others to look at the highlighted paragraphs. They demand that all members of the society within a radius of 15 kilometers, with the main building of Cloud City Water Village as the center, must report their current location and go to a designated location to record their privileges. They want to clear the area? Yes. In principle, no ability user is allowed to stay within this area. After recording their privileges, the members who wish to participate must obey the commands of the military and police. The military and political departments and the society will give corresponding rewards. Those who don't wish to participate must quickly leave the scene to avoid the human-faced arachnid's invasion. While He Yuein was explaining, Luo Nan and the others had already waited for the elevator to arrive. They poured into the same elevator. Who knew that Zhu Ling, who had been observing with cold eyes all this time, would suddenly take 2 quick steps forward, openly following them. The gazes of several ability users gouged at Zhu Ling's face at the same time, but Zhu Ling pretended not to notice. Correspondingly, their desire to hunt ability users will become even stronger, which is why no ability user is an exception. Luonan raised his eyebrows slightly. This guy really understood. According to his intentions, Yin Lu, the vice officiant of the Blood Flame Order, had to make a trip as well. Was he trying to alert the enemy? Papercut spread his hands. We've already met. Does this count as a pass? Zhu Ling fully displayed the principles of a soldier. I'm sorry, but we need to make thorough preparations. Papercut gave Luonan an inquiring look, and Luonan slowly nodded. Saying anything more would just be a waste of time. What's the big deal about going along with him? Luonan really wanted to see just what sort of method the military would use to search out the human-faced arachnid's avatar. After experiencing it for real, he knew that the matter of recording permissions was quite convenient in terms of form. The military temporarily commandeered a certain office area of Aurora Cloud City and set up the relevant equipment. All one needed to do was wear a wristband and walk around the room according to the requirements of the military's technicians. The relevant information regarding the recording would enter the database jointly managed by the government and the society. It wouldn't be made public. At least in name, the members of the society wouldn't be able to say anything. The 4 members of the society entered the room one by one. Luonan was the last. The first 3 people passed without a hitch. When it came to Luonan, things went quite smoothly. But of course, Luonan walked through the room filled with sensing devices. He simply ignored all sorts of waveforms. These were just smoke screens. The true detection method was actually on the mental plane. It was that wisp of faintly discernible smoke. It came from the suspected person. It was no longer suspected. He Yuan had confirmed their guesses. The frontline commander of this operation was Major General Tian Bang of the Coastal Defense Army's Special Warfare Brigade. It was said that the Xia city government had specially invited this person over. Luonan had reservations about this. Even though this person was a burner, his operations on the mental plane were already extremely exquisite. Compared to Fairchild, Luonan's finesse was a level higher. He was even above many mentally enhanced people. The mental smoke lingered inside and outside their domains. It was an attempt to use its unique nature to induce the instincts of the human-faced arachnid. Cat Eyes and Papercut were both mentally enhanced, but they didn't detect it at all. Luonan slowly walked out of the room and glanced to the side. There were fully armed deep blue walkers standing guard to the side. They were clearly in a state where they were ready to go. This posture wasn't too friendly. Perhaps it was because of this that Zhu Ling had been accompanying them in casual clothes to dilute the hostile atmosphere. When Luonan came out, he heard Zhu Ling giving Papercut and the others a job. Everyone, are you really not going to participate? The rewards for this operation are quite considerable. Papercut grunted and grunted in response. He simply pointed to Luonan when he saw him come out. We'll listen to the boss. Zhu Ling didn't get this internal joke, but he was very clear about Luonan's special position in this group of people. Even if he didn't know before, he now knew the things he needed to know after integrating the information he had access to. An extremely dangerous person who could control a mutant, who could use his power to replace the perpetual fortifications with an infrasonic array, and who could instantly turn an entire city district into a land of death. Of course he could be the boss. He had to be the boss. Zhu Ling immediately cast an inquiring gaze. Luonan hooked his lips. I won't be participating tonight. My first priority is to ensure that my family and friends are far away from danger. I hope the military can keep the situation under control. This is our duty. But it's still a pity that I missed an opportunity to fight shoulder to shoulder with Mr. Luo. Zhu Ling deliberately reached over and shook Luonan's hand. I'm very sorry. Mao Xuan, that idiot, had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. I hope that Mr. Luo won't bother with him. Of course, I was also stupid at the time. No matter what Luonan thought, Zhu Ling's attitude was impeccable. Luonan could tell from this that under his cold and arrogant exterior was an exquisite heart that understood propriety and the ways of the world. Luonan always admired this sort of person. He also hoped that he wouldn't become enemies with this sort of person. Otherwise, he would have crushed him to death earlier. Mo Peng gave him a call at this time. Luonan grunted twice and said, We're meeting a few friends. We'll be down soon. You guys can just head downstairs. A message popped up in the mission window at this time. Luonan saw it and said, I've already called a special car. It's in the parking lot on the 4th floor underground. You guys can head there directly. I guarantee that you'll be escorted to your doorstep. In any case, it's near the Nade district, right? The so-called special car was actually arranged by He Yuein. She had swapped out the usual security car for a business car. It would be safer to take everyone away early.
That thorough?
Mo Peng clicked his tongue twice. But he had already been shocked many times today. There was no need to say too much about such a small matter. On the contrary, this phone call verified Luo Nan's words. Zhu Ling had no reason to keep them here. He gestured with his hand, sending them off. The group of people were walking out when Cat Eyes suddenly said, "Hey! Is there room for negotiation regarding your standard compensation?" Luo Nan and the others stopped walking when she opened her mouth. Zhu Ling did not expect this. He was startled for a moment before he said, "In principle. Like our boss. He has a clear record of fighting with a human-faced arachnid. His recent accomplishments are glorious. He defeated a B-rank cursemancer, a puppeteer, and a fleshly body enhancer." Cat Eyes did not say the word kill in the military's domain, but she focused on the latter half of her words. "Like me. I'm an expert in long-range sensing and guidance. I've successfully cooperated with the military many times in the past. Are you guys going to use a fixed salary for an outstanding ability user like me?" Zhu Ling's mind wandered for a moment. He should be requesting instructions from his superiors through internal channels. He spoke a second later. In order to avoid unnecessary links, the compensation is fixed. But if everyone participates in the operation and can make outstanding contributions, the relevant rewards will not be stingy. These have already been written into the document. Cat Eyes chased closely. What about the designated item? Designated? I heard that the military's research and development of the long-range guidance platform is progressing quite well. They have already successfully manufactured a single soldier model. Can this be included in the scope of rewards or exchange? If it's possible, I can help out tonight. "Hey, Cat Eyes!" Papercut shouted. "What's up?" Papercut had nothing to say when he saw Cat Eyes' innocent appearance. After all, he wasn't that familiar with Cat Eyes. It was hard not to feel a bit awkward. He had just said, "The boss is in charge." How come she was undermining him? How could he know that Cat Eyes was more than happy to undermine him, especially to a certain boss? Zhu Ling acted in a businesslike manner. "Lady Cat Eyes' long-range sensing ability is indeed an ability we need. If you don't mind, you can stay here for now. We will give you a reply after we consult with the equipment department." "Sure. I've been drooling over that single soldier platform for a long time. I definitely won't miss the chance to get my hands on it." Cat Eyes giggled, but her gaze cut to Luo Nan's side. It was quite subtle. Then she turned to Zhu Ling. "I'll say this in advance. I'm just a support job. I absolutely won't go to the front lines. We will arrange the most suitable position for every ability user." "I hope so." Cat Eyes smiled slightly. She raised her hand and wagged a finger at Luo Nan and the others. Then it settled. "See you guys later." Xue Lei was a bit stupefied. Is this okay? Regardless of whether it was okay or not, no one had anything to say. The event was over, so everyone naturally returned to their own homes. New events were another matter altogether. For people had come, but there were 3 when they left. After entering the elevator, Papercut couldn't help but say, "Brother, Cat Eyes really has quite a bit of an opinion of you. You really need to do more work in the future." Luo Nan's lips curled, but he didn't say anything. He was still pondering over the subtle gaze Cat Eyes had cast him before they parted. The group arrived at the 4th underground floor and quickly met up with Mo Peng and the others. Qiu Peipei's medical treatment was done quite well. Her injuries didn't need to be hospitalized, so she came down with them. Everyone had to split up at this time. Papercut and Xue Lei weren't on the same path as them. Xie Junping, Hu Huaying, Du Yong, and the Tian siblings either lived near the school or had their own transportation. The ones who were truly on the so-called special bus were the group from 6th High and the trader of 6th High, Luo Nan. As for the Yu siblings and Turner, Mo Han politely asked them, and they smartly declined. They even expressed their apologies once more. So what? Things had come to this. Their friendship was most likely over. The group of boys and girls were affected by this, and their moods were a bit low. Plus, Cho Pei had suffered a blow to the head. She still had some symptoms, so she fell asleep in Emo Han's arms not long after they got on the bus. The bus was quite silent. Luonan sat in the very front row. The driver beside him was still a member of the society's security personnel, but he had switched shifts. It was no longer old Chin from the Colossal Arm Dojo. The two didn't have much to talk about, so it was quite peaceful. However, they had separated too quickly just now. A bunch of things were left unfinished. For instance, Du Yong specifically called Luo Nan to inform him as soon as possible if Luo Nan had any new insights into magical arrays. Du Yong hoped to continue the discussion tomorrow. Luo Nan vaguely agreed. Whether he agreed or not was another matter. Aside from this, the temporary mission window of the Hexa Ear was quite lively. Practically no one approved of Cat Eye's choice, and it led to a small discussion. Cat Eyes recovered a bit of her refreshed spirit after they separated. She spoke with certainty. Seeking new things and taking risks are the true essence of life. Otherwise, what's the point of having extraordinary abilities? Just look at old you and you'll know. As long as you don't become an extraordinary, prolonging your life and staying young are just wishful thinking. You need to do things that normal people can't do in a short 100 years. Luonan thought that perhaps this was Cat Eye's true temperament. She was most likely depressed from being shackled by the chains during this period of time. Shuelei showed signs of being convinced. Sister Cat Eye's words make sense. There's no need for me to take risks. But when I run the Daoguan, I'll exchange pointers with all sorts of experts. I'll fight a few rounds with powerful people. This is something that normal people can't do. Papercut sighed. You youngsters should just play by yourselves. I just want to take care of my family's little store and have a successful blind date along the way. Luonan didn't want to participate. He had already begun to pretend to be asleep in the car. In any case, he had drunk strong alcohol in broad daylight. There was a sufficient reason. Right now, he needed to pay full attention to Cloud City Water Village, which was getting further and further away. The Wraith sign was his main focus. If he didn't look after her, the chances of Enla coming out in one piece weren't high. But he couldn't resist Cat Eyes teasing him. Boss, what are you planning on doing? Are you going to continue being a boss? Or are you going to advance again? What was advancing again? Luonan didn't consider it. And if it was about ideals, he sent a simple message. Formatting theory. Developing formatting theory and restoring his grandfather's reputation were his most pressing desires. These were not secrets within the society. His avatar on the psychic wave network was the classical structure of formatting theory. Cat Eyes seemed to be quite idle. She continued to speak. Really? Are you sure this is a pursuit and not a habit? Luonan didn't want to discuss such a mysterious topic. He simply used symbols to replace his answer. Chapter 4:12.
Huh.
You don't need it? Or do you feel that this method of communication isn't safe? In the next moment, the communication mode between Luonan and Cat Eyes entered a deeper mental domain. Through the pull of the living starry sky, they transmitted information back and forth. Cat Eyes chuckled, completely ignoring the strange gazes of Ju Ling and the others. This is clearly the most straightforward way, but you still wanted me to come. What are you planning? You really lack a sense of trust. Luonan ignored Cat Eyes' ridicule and went straight to the point. What do you want to help me with? Cat Eyes was even more straightforward. You dare say that the human-faced arachnid that appeared in Cloud City Water Village has nothing to do with you? Luonan smacked his lips. He suppressed the surging emotions in his heart and continued to respond with a question. How much do you know? Hee. Do you think I'm the only captive of those invisible chains of yours? If you can use this method to subdue me, why can't you use the same method to subdue the human-faced arachnid? Not to mention that many of your mental attacks are practically the same as the human-faced arachnids. Did you succeed at the Limestone Water Village pub? Cat Eyes had certainly hidden these words in her heart for a long time. Once they were spoken, they were unstoppable. Her logic was correct. There was a flaw in the time she obtained the human-faced arachnid, but this detail was no longer important. Luonan couldn't help but sigh. Why did she have to say it out loud? Didn't she know that the more it was like this, the more it was impossible for her to let go? F***ck. Luo Nan felt that his selfishness was overflowing at this moment. It was just as Cat Eyes said. Luo Nan had invited her over without thinking about how to deal with her. Perhaps he felt guilty, but perhaps it was more to comfort her. This was selfishness. It wasn't strange, but he didn't expect it to be this strong. Perhaps he had never truly considered letting go of Cat Eyes. Tonight's invitation, was it just a hypocritical self-deception? It wasn't easy to recognize oneself, but it was even harder to recognize one's own shamelessness. Luo Nan's mind was stifled. He didn't know how to continue the conversation for a time. Perhaps Cat Eyes liked to see her boss speechless, but Luo Nan had been silent for far too long by the mission window. Papercut felt that it was very likely that Cat Eyes' habit had poked Luo Nan's sore spot. For a youngster, this was a good opportunity to correct his character. He also began to probe in circles. There's nothing wrong with getting used to it. Speaking of which, Nanster, what kind of activities do you prefer? Speaking, I like nothing in particular. How is that possible? For example, I like to play with handicrafts, especially paper cutting. That's how I got this nickname. When I was trying to figure out a technique, I felt that it was especially interesting. Have you ever had a similar feeling? Luo Nan hoped to use chatting to alleviate the pain of his self-dissection. He really did seriously ponder for a moment before replying, when I'm doing research. Occasionally. Papercut was speechless for a moment. You won't have any friends if you chat like this. But Luo Nan was speaking the truth. Most of his memories before he was 10 years old were blurry. Before he was born, his mother had already passed away. In the first few years of his life, his grandfather had been sent to prison, hospitalized, and his father had gone missing. All of these had been muddle-headed and filled with deep darkness. But after the age of 10, the impression was very deep. He copied his grandfather's experiments. Every time he succeeded or failed, he used himself as a living body. The fear he felt when he carried out the experiments and the joy he felt when he broke through were vivid in his mind. His daily life was just like that. If there was any joy, he could only find it in life. The topic of the temporary mission window was about to come to an end when Yuan, who hadn't participated all this time, suddenly sent a message. Extraordinary powers aren't the essential difference between humans. The difference between the inner world and the secular world is a false proposition. However, researching the essence of extraordinary powers or developing all sorts of new applications have always been the two most valuable options. Mr. Luo and Cat Eye's methods are both very meaningful. Cat Eyes sent a. She was speechless at Yuan's serious newscast. They were the boss and the secretary. What a good match. Whether or not it was reasonable, this sort of newscast was a great killing weapon that could destroy the atmosphere. The topic truly came to an end. Cat Eyes sent a private message from the Living Starry Sky channel. Have you noticed? Yuan is so full that she's about to overflow, but your life is so poor that it's pitiful. Cat Eyes found another angle to attack Luo Nan. She didn't hold back at all. Some people take hobbies as their ideals. Hobbies can be shifted. In the end, there is no limit. Some people chase after higher standards as their ideals. There is no limit to their desires. It is a lifelong pursuit. As for you, you seem to want to make up for your regrets. Boss, I'm very worried for you. Luo Nan didn't know what the latter half of his life would be like, but he knew that he needed to return to the main topic. He forcefully changed the topic. You're at the command center now? Aha! Excellent. Actually, Cat Eyes didn't know that she didn't need to take the initiative to help him. She was very useful as long as she was there. Luo Nan's field of view had shrunk quite a bit with the human-faced arachnid as a fulcrum after he left. But with the addition of Cat Eyes, the fulcrum, and multi-angle observation, she was able to erect a relatively perfect observation scene. Not to mention that a portion of the wraith arachnid was inserted into the central nervous system of the enemy's brain. With this kind of support, Luo Nan could write his name backwards if the wraith sign was captured by these people again. However, Luo Nan slowly tasted the flavor. It seemed that the military's capture here wasn't particularly resolute. Lu should have sensed that something was wrong at this time with the society's leaky nature. She already had the tendency to leave before, but now she had a deep conversation with Chen Weikan.
She slowly dug deeper and deeper into the essence of a matter of jealousy.
Even Fan Chu's illegal operations were exposed. As a manager, he would rather spread his dirty linen in public and affect the image of the company. He didn't even consider cutting losses.
What was the reason?
It was probably the effect of beating the grass and startling the snake. Cat Eyes stood within the temporarily constructed frontline command center. The large screen in front of her displayed the reality monitoring image of Yin Lu. The straightforward inclination caused her to be a bit surprised.
You guys are suspecting her.
Hey, this is a directional target, right? Zhu Ling responded simply. From the intelligence and performance, she's the biggest suspect. Cat Eyes hummed in response. She finally couldn't help but express her doubt in the mission window. Did they eat the wrong medicine? Why are they so generous? He Yueyin responded in a timely manner. The Society has already given you temporary authorization. You are currently the Society's main contact in this matter. You possess the relevant authority. This was undoubtedly He Yueyin's handiwork. Cat Eyes received this favor. She sent a thumbs-up emoticon, expressing her admiration. At this time, a person walked into the command center. He was dressed very casually. He wore a t-shirt, a sports sweater, jeans, and white sneakers. He had a student's aura off the charts. Plus, he had a personality that loved to laugh. The smile on his face never stopped. Cat Eyes communicated with Luo Nan. There are still ability users applying? I'm a bit unfamiliar. Before she could finish speaking, Zhu Ling had already stood at attention and saluted. Major General Tian. The person who came was undoubtedly Tian Bang. It was rumored that he had undergone modifications at a young age. He was a burner who controlled a regular combat unit. He was also a powerful B+ rank expert. But looking purely at his appearance, he seemed to be younger than Zhu Ling. Luo Nan confirmed. It's Tian Bang without a doubt. His outer appearance could confuse people, but the imprint in his mental domain was real. Luo Nan suddenly thought of something at this time. Ask Tian Bang about his age and the time of his modifications.
Got it.
Cat Eyes sent the information to the temporary mission window. There was nothing wrong with it. Asking someone face to face was abrupt and rude. It would be better to look up information on the situation. In any case, He Yueyin was here. The answer came out very quickly. Tian Bang, 25 years old. The official information stated that he had undergone prosthetic reconstruction treatment since he was 5 years old. 20 years? Luo Nan couldn't help but speak. That's not right, right? It had only been 5 or 6 years since burner theory and technology had matured. Even if the previous time was included, it would be 10 years. There was still half of the time left. Seriously speaking, where had Yan Yonghua, the #1 burner, gone to eat shit? For this reason, He Yueyin explained further. The early modifications were purely mechanical strengthening. It didn't involve the archetype formats theory. A cyborg?
Yes, a cyborg.
Do you guys look like one? Cat Eyes raised her eyebrows slightly. She opened up a shared perspective and shared the scene with He Yueyin and the others. Luo Nan gave a silent praise. Cat Eyes' action seemed casual, but she was actually covering for him. Many things would be much more convenient. Cat Eyes had a relaxed expression. She took the initiative to extend her hand and shake Tian Bang's hand. Major General Tian, I've heard of your great name for a long time. You're younger than I imagined. Lady Cat Eye's spectacular performance in '94 left a deep impression on everyone. That missile saved a great deal of time and perhaps the precious lives of soldiers. Perhaps it was because he held a high position, but Tian Bang spoke in a methodical manner. He was quite mature. But when paired with his casual attire and his smiling face that was like the sun, he gave off the feeling that he was reciting lines. Moreover, his acting skills were terrible. Luckily, Tian Bang quickly displayed the straightforwardness of a soldier. Frankly speaking, Lady Cat Eyes, the chances of you being used in this operation aren't high. But I hope that you can be prepared at all times. Once you are used, it will likely be a very thorny situation. Tian Bang suddenly grinned in amusement as he spoke. Actually, I hope that Mr. Luo can stay behind. After all, he's a publicly acknowledged psychic. Moreover, he has a record of successfully capturing traces of the human-faced arachnid. Cat Eyes responded lazily. That's quite unfortunate. Tianbang wasn't that easy to dismiss. However, there's something I want to take the liberty of asking. Mr. Luo left in a hurry. Is it possible that you don't want to get involved in trouble?
What I mean is,
with Mr. Luo's psychic abilities, has he already discovered the human-faced arachnid?
F***ck me.
Luo Nan's heart couldn't help but twitch. As for the temporary mission window, Papercut clicked his tongue twice. Nanster, this person has quite the confidence in you. Speaking of which, do you really have a reaction?
Luo Nan replied. I have a reaction towards him.
Back at the command center, Cat Eyes covered up once more. I'm not sure about that. But I didn't see him draw this time. According to your military's intelligence, isn't his psychic ability displayed through drawing? Tianbang's smile didn't diminish.
He nodded and said, Perhaps.
Lady Cat Eyes, you don't need to pay too much attention to me. I'm just casually saying it. Cat Eyes silently cursed a smiling tiger. She didn't want to let this person feel comfortable. He extended his hand to point at the screen.
Lu was at the tip of his finger. Major General Tian, is it really good for you to be distracted all the time?
I see that you've already locked onto the target. What do you want to do next? Speaking of which, are you targeting Lu alone? Or is it the entire Blood Flame Order? I've heard that your military and the Blood Flame Order have been cooperating quite well. This time, it was Tianbang's turn to evade.
I'm the commander of the operation.
I'm not responsible for considering other matters. TSK, they're finally moving. The screen showed that Lu had finally ended her meaningless negotiation with Chen Weikan. She left with her assistant and bodyguard. Chen Weikan had already completed his mission relatively well. Naturally, he wouldn't stop them. But there was a question that needed to be clarified in the command center. Should we make a move? Tianbang shook his head. Follow procedure. Invite her to the identification room to record her privileges. Zhu Ling responded with a yes. But then he saw that Tianbang didn't make a move. He was a bit baffled. Everyone knew what recording privileges meant. Was Major General Tian not going to take a closer look? Tianbang shot a glance at Cat Eyes and grinned. She wasn't found before. The possibility of her being found now isn't high. It's good to let her go. She can leave this crowded area. We still need to thank her. Keep observing. Everyone.
Yes.
Zhu Ling immediately went out. He was prepared to personally act as a guide. Cat Eyes sent Luo Nan a private message. You didn't even find her. Are you helping? Luo Nan grunted and then sneered. This Tianbang is really a master who says one thing and means another. He talks casually, but he's still investigating behind the scenes. He's never relaxed. From Luo Nan's observation point of view, he could see the mental smoke still lingering. He didn't let any sliver of possibility slip by. Cat Eyes gave him a bit of praise. You've helped quite well. But the problem right now was that Lu didn't know this. It was hard for her to pin her hopes on an illusory fluke. It wouldn't be strange if she made a wrong judgment or overreacted because of this. For example, Li's expression could be considered calm, but her expression was very ugly. Her thoughts were extremely heavy. Up ahead, Zhu Ling was already waiting outside the elevator. Lu had most likely seen him as well.
But then, this woman suddenly made a large turn and walked into the washroom to the side.
Her assistant and bodyguard stopped outside. Major General Tian? Zhu Ling practically thought that Lu was trying to escape, but the command center didn't have an intense reaction. They just smoothly switched to the surveillance of the washroom. Lu could be seen standing in front of the sink. She stared blankly at the mirror on the wall for a while. She ignored her exquisite makeup and twisted her head to face the gushing water column. Cat Eyes put herself in Luo Nan's shoes and made a preliminary judgment. She's determined to fight with her life on the line. Hey, I'm talking to you. Luo Nan didn't respond because he was listening attentively.
He was listening to the whispered conversation that was currently echoing from within the Wraith Sign's body above the mountain peak of the Blood Soul Temple.
The Blood Flame Order didn't choose the communication tools of the secular world. Instead, they used the Wraith Sign to directly communicate with Lu.
The special intent that was transmitted was undoubtedly that of the Order's High Priest, Mrs. Holder.
This leader of the Blood Flame Order didn't involve herself in any messy details. Chapter 413. Ian Lee's first reaction was to try again. Boss, I can try. You don't have the qualifications to take the risk. The one who responded was Mo Lewin, the most senior elder of the order. His thoughts entered the space of the Blood Soul Temple. His mood was extremely terrible, and his tone was unprecedentedly harsh. Ian didn't give up so easily. Boss, Mr. Mo Lewin, the military has a special method of luring the human-faced arachnid. The mold will definitely not be able to resist. If it is lured to death, then all of our efforts these days will be wasted. At the same time, she denied everything she had done today. Fool! Mo Lewin's thoughts were like the heat waves of a desert storm. They came roaring over. You have already done something wrong. Don't try to use your wrong train of thought to remedy it. Look at the military's battle array. They are just luring a human-faced arachnid to death? They are luring us, the Order of Blood Flame, to death. If we immediately release it now, at least we won't be wiped out by the military in one fell swoop because of this. Mrs. Holder was much calmer. She waited for Mo Lewin to vent for a while before slowly sending over a calm thought. Immediately release it and then return. The more you do this, the more you can protect the mold. Since they are targeting the Order, it is very likely that they will treasure it more than we do. Ian was stunned. Mrs. Holder continued to speak. Release it according to the grazing law. We will still have priority. As long as the enemy doesn't truly want to exterminate it, we 4 shepherds will have the ability to summon it back. We have a lot of room to operate. Now execute it. Yes. Ian closed her eyes. Her face drooped even lower. The surging water blocked the changes in her expression. It also masked the incantation that was weak to the point of being inaudible. Everything was carried out in extreme secrecy. However, this could not be hidden from Luo Nan. Luo Nan sat in the front row of the private car that was constantly moving away. His head was drooped, as if he was in a dream. Actually, he was paying attention to what was happening in Cloud City Water Village. He saw the marvelous connection between the Wraith sign and Ian. It was like a spider thread that gradually grew longer and longer. It grew weaker and weaker. At this time, Ian gave the Wraith sign one last command. She told it to hide in the deepest parts of the mental plane. It was to stay as far away from this area as possible. Most importantly, it absolutely could not approach the material plane to hunt. After the command was given, the spider silk finally reached its limit and silently collapsed. In essence, Ian no longer had any connection with the Wraith talisman. But due to the Blood Soul Temple's existence, Ian and the other 3 priests still had a slight connection. If necessary, they could use a special ceremony to locate and capture the Wraith talisman. Of course, the premise of all of this was that the human-faced arachnid could survive until then. Luo Nan's mind stirred slightly. He practically wanted to recall the Wraith sign back and distance himself from this troublesome place. But as he thought about it, he didn't make a move. In front of the sink, Ian lightly coughed and slightly opened her mouth. Diluted blood mixed with lipstick flowed down. She closed her eyes and let the water wash over her, washing away as much of her exhaustion and frustration as she could. Release was a method that tested her ability to control herself. She more or less suffered some backlash. But she did not care about the injury. She was only worried about how long the binding command could suppress the Wraith sign's strong hunting instinct. Deep down, she was quite pessimistic. Roughly half a minute later, Ian finally stood up and touched up her makeup so that she wouldn't look too pathetic. Wasting precious time on this could be considered a form of exquisite self-abandonment. While Ian was touching up her makeup in the washroom, the military had completely activated their response mechanism. They made sure that they were loose on the outside but tight on the inside. The main route from the washroom, the elevator, to the identification room with recording privileges, as well as several possible escape routes, were all targeted by the debilitating weapon. They could be fired at any time. Tian Bang said that it was strange, but he was already accumulating power and waiting for action. As long as Ian made any extreme movements, he would be the first to launch an attack. But after 5 long minutes, they were greeted with a tired, depressed, calm, and cold Ian. Aside from her pale complexion, there was nothing abnormal about her. Ian took her assistant and bodyguard to the VIP elevator. This was in line with the military's expectations. She just so happened to bump into the guide, Ju Ling, Manager Ian, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Zhu Ling of the Coastal Defense Army's Special Forces Brigade.
I've already heard.
Search for the human-faced arachnid. Enlu raised her chin slightly.
Her lips curled into a mocking smile.
You guys have chosen a good place. Do you think that the brand of Frost River reality is enough for a few rounds? Zhu Ling was speechless. Enlu was the first to walk to the elevator. Follow the procedure. Hurry up. I still have things to do tonight. Don't waste time. For both parties involved, the following procedure was so smooth that it made people feel complicated. From the time Enlu entered the elevator to the identification room, to the time she left, not even 5 minutes had passed. Then, nothing happened. Whether it was the detection equipment or Tianbang's secret spying, they did not find any abnormalities related to the human-faced arachnid. If he punched the air, he would really suffer internal injuries. Even when Enlu and her party went downstairs, got in the car and left, the operation personnel gathered around Aurora Cloud City still did not believe it. It was over just like this? Zhu Ling, who walked back, probably had this kind of expression. Tianbang did not comfort his subordinates. He just rubbed his smooth chin and smiled. This time the general staff finally has a chance to perform. Let's execute Plan B. Miss Cat Eyes, it looks like we'll have to fight overtime. Are you going to pay up and leave or stay up late with everyone? Where will the overtime be held? We're not going to move for now. I believe our prey can't run far. Then, is there wine? How about pure grain wine? Okay. If it can be paired with the military's personal combat platform technology catalog, the flavor will be even better. Cat Eyes was playing with the mood while sending a vomiting emoji at the temporary mission window. Strong start but weak finish. What the hell is this? Secretary, hurry up and tell me. Should I stay? He Yuan quickly replied. I suggest you leave. The conflict will most likely occur between Tianbang and the Blood Flame Order. There is no need for a member of the society to get involved. Has the military been rushing towards the Blood Flame Order since the beginning? Tianbang isn't from the military. Ha! There's something going on. He Yuan's reply was cut off. Papercut was afraid that He Yuan would be angry. He hurriedly said, Secretary He, help me analyze this. What in the world is going on tonight? Several seconds passed before He Yuan sent another message. From the looks of it, Tianbang has confirmed that the Blood Flame Order is raising human-faced arachnids for special purposes. From a legal perspective, as long as we can find concrete evidence, we can deal a heavy blow to the Blood Flame Order. But it won't be easy to get rid of the Blood Flame Order. Papercut had a serious attitude towards the discussion. Right now, the city-state development is very obvious. The Blood Flame Order just needs to move out of Xia City in time. Even if they hurt their vitality, they might rise again in a few years. Madam Holder has this ability. Speaking of which, the core strength of the Order hasn't increased in recent years, but the business they do is flourishing. Yes. The Castle Financial Group under Madam Holder has been carrying out continuous industrial expansion for the past 2 years. They are no longer limited to just Xia City. They have set a very high stop-loss line. If they were to cut them off quickly, the military and political departments of Xia City might not be able to achieve complete success even if they really wanted to exterminate them. Luo Nan had heard He Yuan mention the concept of a stop-loss line more than once. It was originally a concept in stock trading. It was used to describe the bottom-line thinking when designing tactics and formulating plans. It was a method that He Yuan held in high esteem. If we don't consider legal factors for the time being, there isn't much meaning in targeting a declining order that has focused on commercial development in recent years. And if we really consider legal factors, Tianbang's actions today aren't perfect in terms of procedure. He Yuan's expression was quite tactful, but Luo Nan couldn't help but interrupt when he heard her. Sister Yuan, are you saying that Tianbang's will is very likely involved in this operation? He Yuan didn't directly answer. In any case, the Xia City government has endorsed this operation. Tianbang holds the advantage of legal factors. His combined strength far exceeds that of the Blood Flame Order. Madam Holder is dealing with every move as it comes. At the very least, she is cutting off the human-faced arachnid perfectly. They all have a certain amount of backup. They have some crucial information that we don't possess. the focus of the conflict is likely to shift.
Therefore, I suggest that Cat Eyes withdraw early and stay out of this matter. Cat Eyes spoke. I will consider it. At the same time, she sent a message through the living starry sky. So, boss. Cat Eyes adopted a posture of completely obeying his orders, giving Luo Nan quite a bit of pressure. From Luo Nan's perspective, the most realistic consideration was to grasp this opportunity and retrieve the Wraith sign. Actually, Luo Nan had plenty of opportunities. Whether it was the Blood Flame Order or the military, they had all lost control of the Wraith sign's current situation. Luo Nan just needed a thought to drag the Wraith sign back from the polar domain. From now on, the military and the Blood Flame Order would no longer have anything to do with it. However, just as Yuan analyzed this, there was a factor that needed to be considered. Backup. Regardless of whether or not Tian Bang could represent the military, regardless of whether or not the Blood Flame Order had the power to reverse the situation, both sides displayed the confidence that they could overturn the situation at any time. This made Luo Nan very concerned. Their backup was Luo Nan's tail. If he didn't handle it properly, it would be the same as adding 2 more powerful enemies to him. What should he do? Luo Nan didn't immediately reply to Cat Eyes. Instead, he closed his eyes in contemplation. There were too many things to handle. His brain couldn't bear it for a time. He instinctively reached out his hand and touched the loose-leaf notebook on his knees. It was said that a good memory was inferior to a lousy pen. At this time, it was extremely good to be able to write and draw. But right now, the car was full of people. If he wanted to do some creative work, he might really be dragged out and tormented. Mo Pang and Mo Han were capable of doing such things. Luo Nan changed his method in a flash. He used the external neuron to open up the drawing software for the flexible e-ink screen in his mind. He created a new blank page and began to toss and turn on it. Boss, are you asleep? Cat Eyes urged him for the second time. Luo Nan didn't answer. He organized his thoughts. His goal was very clear. He wanted to retrieve the Wraith sign and then stop the loss line. The discussion just now gave him a hint. Once you have a goal, you need to consider the worst-case scenario and do your best to avoid it. Set a lower limit for yourself. The Blood Flame Order's methods were worth learning, but it was impossible to sever the connection between Luo Nan and the Wraith sign. Any attempt to sever it would be a joke. Once discovered, they would be like ants on a string. No one would be able to escape. In addition, his control over the Wraith sign was number 1. There was no way he could give it away even if he wanted to. Taking a step back, he could only hide it from others. Luo Nan had this ability. As long as he didn't alarm the 2 great gods of his own society, there didn't seem to be anyone else in Xia City who could explore the polar domain. At most, he wouldn't let the Wraith sign appear in the future. Don't let others see it. Hide. 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 Huh? Luo Nan's mind suddenly went, ding. A light bulb lit up. This was the feeling. God, he actually forgot about that place. Boss. My boss? Cat Eyes was already about to sing a little tune out of boredom. She changed the way she summoned him. Luo Nan's mind was bursting with inspiration. It was the time for him to write like a god. He first used a few simple keywords to retain his general train of thought. Only then did he divert a portion of his attention. He even carried a bit of excitement as he shouted back. Shut up. Go drink your wine. TSK. Are you expressing your dissatisfaction with me? Luo Nan transformed the burst of inspiration into glyphs, pictures, and everything else that could be understood. Everything was simple during this period. He spoke incoherently. No, Cat Eyes. I need you. I really need you. Yes, that's it. What? Right now you just wait there. Wait until. Luo Nan suddenly opened his eyes. He turned his head to ask the driver, around what time do we get home? Luo Nan had been resting with his eyes closed all this time. His sudden words really did give the driver a scare. Finally, this professional driver passed the test. He quickly guessed the answer, around 9:30 at the latest. Luo Nan made an okay gesture. It was just like the tactical movements Cragburst had taught him. There was a strong sense of ritual. As for whether the driver understood or not, it was none of his business. Listen, Cat Eyes. You wait there until around 10 o'clock. There's still an hour. Will the overtime be that long?
Relax. They'll be very busy tonight. You too. I'll contact you again. Luo Nan unilaterally disconnected his mental connection with cat eyes. He began to link together various keywords and expand a step further. At the same time, he printed a simple topographical map of the large living area, Acumen College, and even the Pingjiang district. Electronic drawings and mental drawings were just that fast. In the end, the tip of the pen drew a heavy circle in the swamp jungle of Acumen College. Luo Nan let out a long breath. He was certain that his train of thought had finally connected. He looked at the sloppy draft of the plan and suddenly wanted to laugh. Look! My stop-loss line is higher than you can imagine. The car stopped at this time. They had arrived at Chiu Peipei's home for the first stop. Mo Pang and Mo Han wanted to get off the car and explain things to the parents of Chiu Peipei. How could Luo Nan care about these things? For the sake of avoiding being disturbed by these mundane matters, he didn't care about the itinerary he had just asked for. He closed his eyes and pretended to sleep. He really did sleep this time. He even had a dream. Even in his dream, he was still organizing the draft of the plan. He combed through the details one by one, endlessly enriching the topographical map, the living starry sky, and other elements. Chapter 4:14. The night sky was misty, and the street lights extended one after another, merging into the lights on both sides. It was the time when the night view of the city was at its most beautiful. The neighborhood was also brightly lit. There were even people holding parties at home. It was very lively. Luo Nan raised his head to look at the night sky. His feet didn't walk in a straight line. It seemed that his eyes were a bit hazy from sleep, and his soul was in a trance. Mo Pang was filled with admiration towards Luo Nan's ability to sleep just like that. At the same time, Mo Pang was filled with admiration towards Luo Nan's ability to mingle in Acumen College by himself. In response, Mo Pang's curiosity was about to climb out of his throat. How did you do it? I didn't see any talent like yours in 6th High. Hey, wake up. Ha! Luo Nan pulled his gaze away from the night sky and looked straight ahead. It could be seen that he really hadn't heard it, but his eyes were frighteningly bright. TSK, when did this kid learn to wear contact lenses? They had already arrived at the doorstep of their home. Mo Pang seized the last opportunity to move closer and embrace Luo Nan's neck. Come. Tell me. How did you get into that circle? Before he could finish his sentence, the door opened. Luo Shuqing stood at the door and stared at them. What are you mumbling about when you're already home? Oh, who drank? He sigh. Mo Pang's elbow loosened, and he watched as Luo Nan tunneled under his elbow like a loach. He tunneled in and out from Luo Shuqing's side, breaking through the living room's defenses in the blink of an eye. He scuttled up to the second floor and tossed down a few words from afar. I went to bed early today. Mo Haihang, who was sitting idly in the living room, raised his head. He looks pretty excited. Did he really drink too much? Luo Shuqing was stunned for a moment, and then loudly ordered, I want to take a bath. She faintly heard Luo Nan agree. Only then did she turn her head to stare at Mo Pang. Where did you guys go to play today? Why are you so drunk? Don't you know she's still a minor? Mo Pang was blocked at the door. His face was full of grief and indignation. He cursed in his heart, if you want to scold people, go find someone to drink. Who is your son? Perhaps it really was because of the effects of alcohol. Luo Nan entered his own room, closed the door, and leaned against the door. His heart thumped loudly and his chest faintly trembled. Of course, the most important reason was still nervousness. Whether it was the battle with Jack on the recycling stratum, the confrontation with the Order of Justice at Frost River Reality, or the conflict with the Society at Ocean Sky Cloud City, all of these were sudden incidents. He had been forced to a dead end, so he had no right to be nervous. This was the first time he had acted according to his own will. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. Luo Nan took a deep breath and placed the notebook in his hands on the windowsill. Below it was his grandfather's notebook. The two notebooks fit together perfectly, without the slightest deviation. Glancing at the bedside clock, it was 9:37. The driver's estimation was quite accurate. There was still time. He went to the bathroom and turned on the shower. The hot water sprayed out and the steam quickly covered the bathroom.
Even if his aunt hadn't mentioned it, he would have taken a hot bath. He stood naked under the water column, the hot water splashing on his head and rolling on his body. This caused the blood flow to accelerate, the metabolism rate to increase, and the liver function to operate effectively. This accelerated the decomposition of alcohol in the body, turning it into hot sweat that was mixed with the water and seeped out. The steam was stuffy and humid, but his mind became clearer and clearer, and it did not affect him from continuing to outline his plan. His draft plan. The drawing software page in his mind seemed to have become much richer. In particular, the outline of the streets around the large living area had changed from rough to detailed. The key details, such as the layout of the military personnel that he had detected earlier, were also clearly depicted. It was as if there was an invisible assistant helping him complete the post-production work. Luonan scratched his head and thought back to the nap he had in the car just now. He still had some vague memories. Could it be that there really was a subconscious action in that dream just now? If there was, then it should be the combined effect of self-awareness, soul strength, external neuron, and special drawing software. It looked quite marvelous, but there were precedents in the society. Mr. Bai's dream entering technique was this type of approach. Luonan didn't plan on diverting his attention to research for the time being. He hastily washed up and confirmed that most of the alcohol had been released from the steam. Then he wiped his body dry and lay back on the bed. The effects of the alcohol had been reduced to a minimum, but he was still excited. It was especially obvious after he closed his eyes. Luonan read through the draft plan step by step with these thoughts in mind. His thought sketched out a large background screen, and the corresponding train of thought flowed on the virtual drawing. Unknowingly, his consciousness floated past the boundary between the real and the virtual, touching upon the twin fulcrums formed by the human-faced arachnid and cat eyes. The living starry sky 80 kilometers away and the scene of reality were mapped over. Even though he hadn't personally experienced the scene, everything he saw was true. His thoughts traversed the air and locked onto his target. Layers of ripples undulated within the wine cup. Cat Eyes held the wine cup and looked at the fine ripples within. Her thoughts moved away from the flexible screen in her other hand and she seemed to be deep in thought. Two soft sounds rang out. Zhu Ling had temporarily assumed the role of an orderly. He placed two small plates on the coffee table and matched them with chopsticks. Then he quietly left. A plate of boiled peanuts and a plate of cold pig head meat. They were the most ordinary of dishes. However, this was the frontline command center of Aurora Cloud City. A lounge next to it. The air was filled with the fragrance of wine. From the perspective of military morale, it was indeed necessary to open up a separate lounge. I feel like something's wrong. Pure grain wine doesn't have side dishes to go with it. What's the point? Tianbang picked up a peanut and sent it to his mouth. He paired it with a mouthful of wine and his features wrinkled up on his excessively young face. He looked like a glutton. Then he leaned back comfortably and leaned against the back of the sofa. Even though it's just a side dish, the control of the heat is quite attentive. Cat Eyes shot him a glance. She was very interested in the changes in his expression. Tianbang was amused. Aren't you curious? How can a robot have a taste? Cat Eyes was speechless for a time. Tianbang's features stretched out once more as he looked up at the ceiling. The lights of the lounge shone on his face, glistening and sparkling. His face couldn't be considered particularly handsome, but the contours were clear and distinct. It truly had the texture of a sculpture. It also made one curious. What proportion of the metal structure was hidden beneath his skin? He extended 3 fingers and placed them horizontally in front of his face. The human body transformation must retain 3 points. The first is perception. This is the boundary between you and me. The second is thought. Through it, one can grasp the power of experience. The third is emotion. Through this, one can obtain vitality and spirituality. Only by retaining these 3 points, or by strengthening and transforming on these 3 points, can it be considered a success. Cat Eyes swirled the wine in her cup. Are there still people who don't transform like this? Generally speaking, it was after the burner technology appeared. Therefore, I am very grateful to the creator of this technology. It may not be perfect, but it leads to the correct reasoning. Tianbang stretched out his arms and curled them up. Looking at it with the naked eye, one could see the flow of his muscles. However, Cat Eye's sensitive ears could still hear the fine sound of metal scraping against each other.
Having experienced the stupid old-fashioned transformation, I can understand this point even more. I am very envious of those who walk the right path from the start. I yearn even more for the outstanding ones. Cat Eyes swirled her wine cup and suddenly laughed in spite of herself. You are very sensitive. I didn't say anything. Really? Tian Bang put on a look of surprise. Fine. I'm just being honest. I feel a bit inferior. I'm also using this to express my feelings. There should be people watching me right now, right? Tian Bang's gaze pierced over with his final words. Though he was smiling, his gaze was filled with pressure. Luo Nan's heart spasmed, and Cat Eyes raised her eyebrows. The two were on the living starry sky plane. Their consciousnesses were connected. At this time, the mission window on the psychic wave network jumped. Papercut, who had returned home, sent a message. Hiss. This fellow. Shuelei quickly responded. He knows that we're sharing a perspective. Yes. He was talking about the psychic wave network. Luo Nan's taut heartstrings relaxed. He saw Tian Bang raise a finger. This is an old trick of your society. And I know that there must be someone I know. Cat Eyes asked with interest. Who is it? Well. Tian Bang suddenly leaned forward and shouted. Hello, Sister Yuan. Let's drink later. I'll confess to you when I get drunk. His voice was very loud. Even the private lounge could not withstand it. The sound waves rushed out and scattered throughout the frontline command center. Not only were there technical elites of the military here, but there were also police bureaucrats and members of the government security department. The atmosphere was bewildered and awkward for a time. Zhu Ling, who was temporarily in command, had a headache. He even began to doubt his life. Was it really the right decision for him to transfer to the Special Forces Brigade? Ha 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 ha. Cat Eyes burst into laughter. She rocked back and forth, so much so that her hair covered her eyes. She brushed it aside, revealing her plump forehead. She could not help but sigh in admiration. Truly extraordinary courage. At the same time, she sent a private message to Luo Nan. Do you want to get rid of him? He's trying to steal your secretary. What does this have to do with me? Luo Nan was inexplicably unhappy. The temporary window strangely quieted down. There was no movement. However, Papercut and the others were certainly behind the window with their ears and eyes open. They were paying close attention. As for whether or not He Yuan was there, she was probably there. Cat Eyes didn't care about what the others were feeling. She raised her cup to Tian Bang and said, You're quite an interesting person. Come come come. Cheers. Tian Bang cheerfully raised his cup in response. I've always felt that special people like us don't need to worry about our livelihood. Then in this world, honesty is the greatest virtue. Cheers to honesty. The two raised their cups and clinked. They were in high spirits as they drank to their heart's content. Finally, Papercut couldn't hold it in any longer at the mission window. He asked the others for their thoughts. Nanster, are you still watching? Luo Nan didn't reply. He just lay on the bed. His excited emotions had returned, and they were undulating like waves. This wasn't his first time experiencing this. It was the same last time. He was also in the position of a spectator. However, the spectators weren't the two people in front of him. They were Peony and Long Seven. Whether it was Peony, Long Seven, or the current Tian Bang, their personalities were all different. However, all of them had outstanding personalities. They were thickly painted characters. They could be recognized at a glance when placed in a crowd. It could be said that they radiated radiance in all directions. In comparison, Luo Nan was like an incorporeal soul. He floated in the nothingness, hiding behind the shadows. He watched these people radiate with dazzling radiance, painting the otherwise ordinary environment with magnificent colors. Though he had similar experiences, he might not be able to achieve that calm and composed, magnanimous and fearless style in his entire life. He always believed that this was a factor of personality. Perhaps this was indeed the case. However, Tian Bang's words today pointed out another crucial factor. He had to be honest. Chapter 4:15.
Luo Nan had to admit that he was in a bad mood. As for the root of his bad mood, it had been a bit chaotic before, but now it was becoming more and more clear. He was offended. The reason sounded laughable, but it was the truth. Tian Bang, this fellow, had a powerful charisma that could make cat eyes gasp in admiration. He used this charisma to forcefully seduce He Yuan. One was Luo Nan's believer, and the other was Luo Nan's secretary. So Luo Nan knew that even though he expressed his unwillingness to act as a god on the surface, or even in his rational consciousness, he respected He Yuan greatly. But deep down, he still enjoyed the convenience and vanity that came with this relationship. So his heart still wished to maintain this relationship, and he rejected all elements that could harm this relationship. This kind of thinking was actually not strange. Everyone had the instinct to benefit themselves. But the crux of the problem was just as Tian Bang had said. What about being honest? What he desired, what he hoped for, what he was good at, what he was good at, what he was good at. It was like a bright pearl illuminating the night. It was like a treasured sword breaking out of a sheath. It was naturally seen by others, and it was breathtaking. But if he kept it hidden, not to mention others not knowing, even he himself would be confused over time. Luo Nan had provoked many enemies, and he bore many secrets. Hiding a few tricks to confuse others was something he should do, but he could not deceive himself because of this. Not being honest to others could be considered an expedient measure. Not being honest to himself was tantamount to burying and self-destructing. F***ck. Luo Nan flipped over and sat up. His two palms slapped his cheeks. He used an unprecedented frank attitude to face his own heart. Fine, he was protecting his food. He was also envious and jealous. He was like a child that had not grown up. He was instinctively protective of his food. He was sufficiently selfish, and he hid all of this under his childish exterior. Moreover, he compared himself with Peony, Long Seven, and Tian Bang. He envied their toughness and straightforwardness, and he envied their ease and ease. These two elements were mixed together to contradict and clash with each other. They were tangled and awkward, and they made him subconsciously believe that he was a head lower than these elite figures. In fact, Luo Nan was far inferior in terms of mental maturity. It had nothing to do with his realm. It had nothing to do with his nature being good or bad. He just could not get past the hurdle in his heart. He had to be honest to himself. Luo Nan let out a long breath. His upper body slapped down heavily, and he lay down once more, closing his eyes. At this moment, his eyes could not see and his ears could not hear. But with cat eyes and the human-faced arachnid as a fulcrum, his thoughts expanded to encompass the enormous aurora cloud capital and its surrounding region. The body is here, but the heart is there. The soul has not moved, but the intention has come. Luo Nan's body and soul were still 80 kilometers away, but his consciousness was flowing in the air above the large living area. He was like a mysterious eye that knew all things. The night spread out under their feet. The skyscrapers, the campus, and the jungle in the distance formed the background. Brilliant lights and neon lights gathered like the sea and flew like fog, engraving the traces of human civilization consciousness in every corner of the light, turning this area into a bustling place and a city that never sleeps. At this time, the skyscrapers were still crowded with people. Tourists and players shuttled up and down, completely unaware that there were military personnel standing guard at every key point. They were gradually diverting the flow of people. Of course, the flow of people was endless. Cloud City Water Village had many five-star hotels, over 1,000 large and medium-sized companies, and shopping malls. The tourists, residents, and overtime workers numbered in the hundreds of thousands. Even the military and the government could not control this flow of people in a short amount of time. If they were to act too hastily, there might even be chaos. The military and the government could not control this flow of people, but in a certain sense, Luo Nan could. On the mental plane, where matter photons were unable to reach, the turbid flow of emotions, spirituality, and thoughts interweaved and surged violently. Perhaps there was a difference between the pure and the turbid, but when they came together, the pure became turbid, and the turbid became even more turbid. The layers crisscrossed and became chaotic. However, Luo Nan's mysterious eye bestowed a unique order to the turbid flow through his clairvoyance. The living starry sky covered as far as his mental senses could reach. The lives, desires, thoughts and spirituality of tens of thousands of people were combined and mapped. They transformed into life sketches, forming groups of astrological constellations. Through this form, every person's imprint throbbed within the living starry sky. In the end, they converged into a hazy river of stars that stretched across the horizon. The radiance of the converging stars was far too dazzling. If one stared at it for a long time, one would see a boundless expanse. It was like a desert of light. And the core of the bright radiance was Luo Nan's self-format. He resided at the very center of millions and millions of stars. He became the core of the operation of the starry sky. Formatting theory bestowed this ability upon him. He wanted to maintain. No, he wasn't frank enough. The more straightforward answer was that he didn't want to be inferior to anyone. He could even go a step further. It didn't matter if he was low-key or high-key. He wanted to become the core of the crowd. He wanted to be the most unique one. In the past, he clearly loathed this type of fellow who didn't say what he meant. He believed himself infallible. So it was like repelling each other? The problem was he unable to do it? His body and soul had yet to move. Only a strand of his consciousness remained here. It was equivalent to opening a client, logging onto the network, and engaging in a marvelous strategy game. As for the medium of operation, in the depths of nothingness, the malevolent human-faced arachnid's 8 legs moved. It stealthily leaped from one curtain after another on the mental plane. It was the same as swimming between the densely packed stars of the living starry sky. It was like a dark specter flitting past a window. It could transform into a deathly nightmare at any time. Its long, sharp legs cut into the window and preyed upon the unaware life force and spirituality within. Because of this, Luo Nan could practically obliterate any person covered by the living starry sky at any time. He was the ruler of these thousands upon thousands of lives. And a mere human-faced arachnid was just the tip of the iceberg of his completely sealed system. His body and soul had yet to arrive, but his thoughts came first. He used reality as the background and lives as the chess pieces. He stirred the vortex of wind and clouds. Whether it was Tian Bang, Peony, or Long 7, who could do this? Wasn't this what made him unique? Wasn't this a height that others would never be able to reach? Suddenly, Luo Nan tore away his skin that was on the verge of rotting. He fiercely pounded his own chest with a fist. His consciousness rumbled. Does this feel good? The wraith sign let out a soundless roar and suddenly sped up its pace. It made a few consecutive leaps and quickly approached the material plane. At this very moment, the wraith sign no longer concealed its tracks and traces. It no longer concealed its intense desire to prey. Instead, it followed its instincts to forcefully absorb the various waveforms of the airflow. It sniffed and locked onto its target, aiming its ugly mouthpiece at the target it had long since confirmed. Luo Nan confirmed that there was no mistake about the target, so he unlocked the final privileges of the wraith sign. Go, the game has begun. The mental plane and the material plane converged noiselessly. The window was like a decaying and frail ruin. It collapsed in an instant. The occupant inside was completely unaware until the ice-cold claws of the demon pierced through it. A sharp screech surged and spread from the boundary between the mental and the material plane at this time. In the lounge of the frontline command center of Aurora Cloud City, Tian Bang's wine cup stopped by his lips. He paused for a moment before withdrawing it. He faced Cat Eyes across from him and said apologetically, "It looks like we can only chat back." Human-faced arachnid. Huh? Cat Eyes raised her cup in response. I wish that both of us will get what we want. Tian Bang didn't fully understand this well-meaning congratulatory speech. Then Zhu Ling's voice came from next door in the next second. Enemy attack. Fragrant bait number 4. A second later, Zhu Ling hurriedly pushed open the door to the lounge. He stood straight and saluted. Major General Tian, the direction of the target has been confirmed. Fragrant bait number 4 has been killed in the southwest. By the time Zhu Ling came in to report, the frontline command center next door was already clamoring with noise. The projection screen split into different sections. It summarized the surveillance information from the sky, every important floor, ground, and underground. There were also various waveform monitors that dazzled the eyes. Common and uncommon waveform images and data were displayed in rows and rows. Every second, There would be an obvious and unobvious refresh. Tian Bang maintained his original sitting posture. He held his wine cup in a leisurely manner. He didn't need to go to the command center. He could receive and analyze an enormous amount of information through the built-in transceiver apparatus. Moreover, in the mental domain, no matter how precise the military's detection apparatus was, it could not compare to his own seasoned mental fire and smoke senses. Cat Eyes could not do what he did. Even though the root of the current turmoil should be her boss, her senses were still fuzzy. She simply picked up the sunglasses that the military had temporarily gifted her and placed them on the bridge of her nose. The special information receiving equipment could select the corresponding surveillance footage, and it could also seamlessly connect to the results of the military's radar scans. Cat Eyes first looked at the situation at fragrant bait number 4. It was easy to recognize. It was the entrance to an underground parking lot beneath Aurora Cloud City. At this time, a circle of people blocked the entrance. Some were standing and some were lying down. Some of the people lying down were wrapped in sturdy exoskeleton battle armor. The interception power of the relevant direction has been lost. The AI's alarm reverberated. Actually, there was no need to say much. Just by looking at the formation of the relevant personnel, they did not have the slightest bit of combat power. The human-faced arachnid has broken through the inner southwest defensive line. Rather than saying this was a report, it was better to say that Zhu Ling exclaimed in surprise. Tian Bang did not give any instructions because at this moment, the consciousness of this B+ rank burner was wrapped in intense mental fire and smoke. He was rushing towards the location where the human-faced arachnid had appeared. He Yuan's message popped up on the mission window. Switch radar data. Didn't you want them to leave early? Cat Eyes stabbed at the mission window, but she still switched the live surveillance footage to data mode. In an instant, large amounts of graphics, wavebands, and relevant data symbols flooded the screen. They were synchronized to the mission window through a shared perspective. The mission window flickered continuously. Shuelei could not help but complain, "I don't understand it at all." Papercut admitted defeat. "I only know that it has to do with waveband absorption. Then I use this as material to calculate the probability of the human-faced arachnid's location. I don't understand the specifics either. I just want to know. What is fragrant bait number 4? Just as Papercut spoke, a sudden and continuous wave crest suddenly rose on the flowing waveband graph. It pushed all the way to the highest limit of the graph. Before the scale unit changed, a nearly straight line was drawn out. Zhu Ling also noticed this change. He contacted the command center in a low voice. "What's the situation?" "Number 1 has made contact with the target. They are engaged in shallow combat." "They have disappeared." The tone of the technician's voice changed. It could be heard clearly through a wall. Chapter 4:16. The wine cup shattered in his hand, but Tian Bang did not come back to his senses. He was still daydreaming. Shards of the wine cup shot out, but there was no wound on his hand. Only some of the wine and shards slid down his arm and into his cuffs. His waterproof sweater covered it, so it was impossible to see. However, once he changed his posture, he would not feel good at all. "Major General Tian." Zhu Ling tried to warn him, but Tian Bang maintained a fixed posture for the next 5 seconds. The wine seeped out from his sleeves at his elbow and opened up on his pants. Cat Eyes looked pensive. She asked Zhu Ling, "You mentioned fragrant bait number 4 just now. What is that?" Papercut sent a cupped fist emoticon over at the mission window. "Many thanks for your help in asking." Zhu Ling hesitated for a moment before replying, "It is bait specifically used to attract the human-faced arachnid. It is also a target that can tempt the human-faced arachnid to kill. Since it is number 4, then there must be number 1, 2, 3, or 5, 6, 7. There aren't that many. We only prepared 4 conventional baits." It was unknown when Tian Bang regained his senses, but he personally answered Cat Eye's question. He extended his hand and pointed at his chest. "This is number 1. Number 2 is my assistant. Number 3 is a mentally enhanced ability user hired by the military. Number 4 is a bit special. It is a mutant carrier occupied by the human-faced arachnid. Then the first one was finished. The preset destruction incantation didn't seem to have any effect. Cat Eyes raised her eyebrows. He wasn't hurt? It was useless. As he spoke, Tian Bang finally saw that only a bit of the glass handle remained on his fingertips. He tossed it away and swung his hand, flinging a pile of shards from his sleeves onto the ground. Tian Bang shot a glance at Zhu Ling after he finished this action. Zhu Ling thought that Tian Bang was about to give an order, so he instinctively stood at attention. However, Tian Bang did not speak again. He just pulled out a wet wipe from the paper box on the coffee table and slowly wiped his hands. His perpetual smile was somehow paired with a wrinkled brow. His entire appearance was deformed. At this moment, Tian Bang no longer had the feeling of a young man. Zhu Ling shut his mouth and maintained his silence. Cat Eyes observed the man who called himself Frank with interest. She even asked, "How does it feel to fight against the human-faced arachnid? Do you need help?" It's much smarter than the intelligence reports, or perhaps its instincts are stronger. Tian Bang's smile quickly returned to normal. But its gaming level is terrible, and it gave up Flash very early. The only problem is that it doesn't look like it has a cooldown. Cat Eyes could be considered a gaming expert. She easily deciphered. He directly teleported away. He didn't catch the tail? Tian Bang shook his head. Polar Domain, Abyss Region, Deep Zone, Middle Zone. Especially the last two regions, we couldn't capture its movement trajectory. Even in the shallow zone, the feeling is very strange. What kind of strange method? In the empty room, playing hide and seek with you. That's it? Okay, it escaped? I don't know. Tian Bang threw the wet towel up and let it fall freely. He got up and walked out. Cat Eyes pushed her sunglasses up to her forehead and followed him without a trace of politeness. Very soon, the group arrived at the frontline command center. At this time, more than half of the technical staff in the center were gathered in front of the radar data display screen and discussing. It seemed that it was difficult to reach a consensus. The data was still the same data. He couldn't understand it. At the mission window, Papercut took out the good habit of asking questions when he didn't understand. He consulted someone who knew the ropes. "Secretary what are they so conflicted about? The conditions are incomplete." Yuan responded and then gave a simple explanation. There weren't many methods to deal with dark-sider life forms with the current detection technology. No matter how advanced the equipment was, it was very difficult to discover and lock onto a dark-sider life form in time. They could only rely on methods like the shadow mist to distinguish the human-faced arachnid's interference with the material plane. It absorbed various waveforms and indirectly determined the probabilities. Since it was a matter of probability, there was nothing wrong with obtaining more effective data. If the combat forces arranged around the building weren't able to eliminate the human-faced arachnid in the first instance, then they would force the human-faced arachnid closer to the material plane. This would cause it to reveal more and more characteristics and details. This would serve as a reference for subsequent calculations. But for some unknown reason, the human-faced arachnid had never given any continuous set of data. This meant that it was always leaping and advancing without any pattern to speak of. Yuan gave a simple explanation while Tian Bang communicated with the center's chief technician about the specific perception of the mental plane just now. "It's clearly in the shallow zone. My mental smoke has locked onto it, but it can always disappear and reappear with ease. It's like a flash, teleportation, and other such skills." No. Don't be misled by my description. What I mean is, it's like a flat space. There are invisible folds that the arachnid can perceive and utilize at any time. These folds provide cover for the arachnid. Do you understand what I mean? It was clear that the chief technician's comprehension ability in this area was far inferior to his attainments in numbers. At the mission window, Papercut felt that Tian Bang's perceptual description was more intuitive. He strove to understand the feeling, but it was unclear. Damn, it's a mental strengthened one. What does this mean? It means that this human-faced arachnid has grasped a deeper mystery on the mental plane at the same depth. It utilizes some sort of terrain on the mental plane to obtain inconceivable results. Yuan stated calmly, "After all, we know nothing about what the world looks like in the eyes of a dark-sider life form. The same logic can be used to prove that the world is distorted beyond recognition in the eyes of some monsters. Cat Eyes also spoke in the mission window, seemingly pointing at something. Papercut had never been interested in mystical things. He found it strange that Luo Nan, who had always been highly sensitive to such topics, hadn't said anything yet. "Nanster, did you fall asleep?" "No." Luo Nan simply responded with a single word, but his consciousness was climbing within the distorted world. Under his command, the Wraith Sign's long limbs moved noiselessly, moving from one curtain to another curtain. His clairvoyance towards the mental plane was indeed different from other ability users. After experiencing and comprehending the logic world and the telescope, the two structural forms of soul strength and their different functions, he had a completely new train of thought on how to utilize this special clairvoyance. Luo Nan had previously used the human-faced arachnid's individual distortion towards the mental plane to pull the curtain and weave a simple labyrinth at the last minute. This caused Tian Bang, who was used to being straightforward, to be bewildered by this little smoke screen. Luo Nan never strayed far. After he made Tian Bang dizzy, he wandered around Aurora Cloud City. If he wanted to take the Wraith Sign away and erase all future troubles, he needed to have both Tian Bang and the Blood Flame Order reveal their hidden trump cards. The faintly discernible human-faced arachnid, the obscure and unclear ownership, and the erratic location. These three things combined together were undoubtedly the most ideal state for him. Chapter 417. From Luo Nan's ears, the incantation sound was weak and oppressive. It was like a whisper, but it continued on without end. It was like an undercurrent of a mountain stream. It flowed downwards and guided the mind. Unwittingly, the mind seeped through the layers of earth and rock to another location. Blood flames surged and rocks rose. Luo Nan's mind arrived at a rather familiar location. This was the interior of the Wraith Sign, the structure of the Blood Soul Temple. The incantation sound surrounded the mountain-like Blood Soul Temple. It came and went in an ethereal manner. Although it was low, the Blood Soul Temple was relatively stable in its structure wherever it passed. The restlessness of energy could be seen. It was very different from usual. Correspondingly, the Wraith Sign was affected a bit. Its claws rubbed and hissed. This was the first time Luo Nan felt the reverse effect of the Blood Soul Temple on the human-faced arachnid. All right, the Blood Flame Order had finally made their move. But then he felt that something was wrong. Although the direction was a bit erratic, wasn't the feedback coming and going a bit too frequent? It seemed to be very close. Luo Nan's thoughts stirred, and the Wraith Sign sank into the void. It jumped and switched between the tall buildings of Cloud City Water Village. On the more fundamental mental plane, thousands of curtains warped. The starry sky was dazzling. The long claws of the Wraith Sign moved back and forth between groups of constellations, probing and filtering one by one. The dense stream of people continued to follow their own plans and moods. They wandered back and forth in the large living area. They were completely unaware of the situation outside of their understanding and perception. The temporary mission window jumped once more at this time. Papercut had seen the tense atmosphere of the command center for a long time. He had to revise his judgment and view. This human-faced arachnid seems to be very troublesome? Hee-Wei-In expressed her affirmation. It is indeed so. According to the intelligence, this human-faced arachnid has likely swallowed a large amount of its own kind. Its instincts have been greatly strengthened, and its sensitivity to danger and reaction speed have increased. Perhaps it is already very close to becoming a complete body. So it's like this. Cat Eyes suddenly cut to the chase. Where did you get your intelligence from? Hee-Wei-In responded, supposedly, it's from within the Blood Flame Order. A traitor? Hee. A traitor was inevitable. Luo Nan and the Wraith Sign had already pushed away a large amount of dense fog. The fog was clear and bright. There was only the corrosive smoke of the Wraith Sign. It slowly permeated and locked onto the target. 80 kilometers away, Luo Nan closed his eyes. His eyebrows jumped. It was this guy. At this very moment, Luo Nan's location formed a line with the large living area. And with the latter as the endpoint, a vertical line extended out in a northwest direction. The distance was approximately 30 kilometers. This was a stress sports gym located in the River Wu district. This gym specialized in serving high-end crowds. The core members of the Blood Flame Order were gathered here. In the private room, 5 figures could be seen, but there was one person who was not visible. Emo Lewin, the most senior elder of the order, was not in a good mood. The pressure was like an invisible dark cloud that covered the entire room. Inla stood with her head lowered. She was extremely depressed and didn't speak or move. Meng Chong and Wu Kuei were about the same. Meng Chong stood there with his arms crossed, his face expressionless. Wu Kuei was in the corner, silent. Jiang Yuanjun, who was more active, was pacing back and forth in the room, restless. The light from the projection shone down, displaying a bird's-eye view of Cloud City Water Village. The angle was very good. With Aurora Cloud Capital as the center, the 7 skyscrapers were all included, but that was all. They practically knew nothing about the enemy's arrangements in this area. Mrs. Holder wore a black dress. She sat upright in front of the projection. Light flooded over her body and streaked across her dignified snow-white face. Her face was expressionless from beginning to end. Only when Jiang Yuanjun couldn't help but speak did she stop in front of her and ask in a deep voice. "Ren Hong still hasn't arrived?" Jiang Yuanjun responded, "He's quite far away. He just said that he would arrive soon." "What about the purchased information?" A moment later, Wu Kuei, who was in charge of the information, answered, "It's done." In the next moment, a series of red and blue dots of light appeared on the projection. Compared to the recorded image, it was rather crude, but it was worth nearly 10 million. Mrs. Holder didn't say anything else. She tilted her head slightly to look at the projection. The 10 million level of real-time information wasn't too detailed, but it could at least give her a general understanding of the situation. Emo Lewin had the same thoughts as her. He opened his mouth for the first time to decipher the information. The deep blue walkers have moved out. Looking at their distribution, they're sparse but not dense. They're shifting frequently. This is a search formation. They're expanding the range of the format of fire to the greatest limit. With the instincts of the mold, the possibility of bypassing this dangerous area is very small. Then why aren't you going to save them? Jiang Yuanjun stomped her feet anxiously. "It looks okay." Mrs. Holder's lips hooked up. It's impossible to deal fatal damage to the mold in this sort of situation. The other side is rather polite. At the very least, it's a bit different from the previous human-faced arachnids. Do they want to capture it alive? Emo Lewin's thoughts sank even deeper. The possibility is very high. Mrs. Holder shook her head slightly. In that case, Ren Hong is a traitor. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire room suddenly sank into an icy cold cave. The other people's minds were relatively deep. Their expressions were always restrained. Only Jiang Yuanjun was truly dumbstruck. A second later, his entire body jumped up. Preposterous! Jiang Yuanjun's lips were trembling. Ren Hong is a priest. He's nothing if he leaves the order. He's not an idiot. This sort of judgment is too hasty. Mrs. Holder turned her face over. She no longer looked at the projection. Her calm and ice-cold gaze looked straight at Jiang Yuanjun. From the current information, is the military targeting the human-faced arachnid or the order? The order. In that case, the human-faced arachnid is just an excuse. It doesn't matter if they capture it or kill it. But why are they still entrenched in Cloud City Water Village? Why are they spending so much effort to play hide-and-seek with a human-faced arachnid? It might be because they want to find evidence. If you wish to incriminate someone, you can always find a pretext. Whether it's the Order or the Castle Consortium, they aren't pure little white sheep. The relevant files are in the hands of the government and the military. They can fill up a cabinet at the very least. Why do they need to seek a faraway solution? Then, from our standpoint, we can only consider this. The human-faced arachnid is useful to them. The mold is useful to them. The Blood Soul Temple is useful to them. Then tell me, old Jiang, what kind of people is the Blood Soul Temple most useful to? Jiang Yuanjun was stupefied. He didn't respond. Instead, Inla spoke in a hoarse voice, the Blood Flame lineage. Yes. The Blood Flame lineage needs the Blood Soul Temple. And the Blood Flame lineage will more or less contact the military.
Am I right? Jiang Yuanjin's sweat poured down like rain.
The expressions of the others weren't any better.
The special doctrine of the Blood Flame Order determined that they would rise on the battlefield and fall in peace. For this reason, the Order's hidden power within the military had always been relatively strong. The Orthodox branch of Xia City was able to participate in the Frost River Reality Project with the identity of a declining order. They were even able to dispatch management personnel. This explained a few problems. However, a divided order also divided its corresponding network of people.
If this branch could have hidden power within the military, then the other branches could do the same. After all, for the Blood Flame lineage, this was the strongest and most direct source of power.
This perfectly explains Ran Hong's defection. He is nothing after leaving the order. But the current situation is that he hasn't left the order. He has just jumped from one branch to another. Moreover, there is one thing that we are unable to give him, but it is also a serious hindrance to him. Chapter 4:18. So it was Ran Hong. Luo Nan never thought that the answer would come so easily. Any suspicions of bait, a traitor, and the like were instantly swept away. But the unexpected had to be unexpected. Luo Nan didn't really understand Ran Hong. He just knew that he was a true big shot in the business of the Blood Flame Order. He was much stronger than Yin Lu, who was distracted by other things.
Among the priests of the order, his importance was second only to Lady Holder.
Many times, he acted as the substitute priest. How could such an important person betray just like that? Several deep blue walkers took up a defensive formation, surrounding Ran Hong within. They were tightly protected, and this directly proved this person's position.
Ran Hong was at the center of the formation. He pressed his palm against the ground and muttered an incantation.
Since this was the lowest level of the underground parking lot, there was thick soil beneath the cement floor. Ran Hong used it as a channel to continuously absorb energy.
He formed a nearly substantial incantation to bless his body.
A low rumbling sound was heard. Someone was contacting him. Coincidentally, Luo Nan sensed the two fulcrum points on the other side of the call. Tian Bang was on the other side. He was in the command center.
In front of everyone, he spoke softly. "How is it?"
The image displayed on the central hologram was the real-time situation of the underground parking lot. Several deep blue walkers wore protective visors, but Ran Hong only wore priest robes. He didn't have anything covering him. Cat Eyes pushed aside the messy hair in front of her eyes and clicked her tongue. Ran Hong was a big shot in Xia City. Of course she recognized him. Ran Hong also noticed that Tian Bang used the public channel to contact him. His expression was very ugly. But since he had done something, he had to bear the corresponding consequences. In the end, he simply lowered his eyes and focused on the leaping spiritual light on the ground. There's already a reaction. The mold is still nearby. It views us as prey. It's greedier and more powerful than we imagined. This means that its basic qualities are extremely good. After becoming a sacrificial artifact, we can hold high expectations. Tian Bang inquired, "What about the specific location? Can you control it?" Ran Hong didn't even raise his head. "You guys from the restraining faction are all thinking about this sort of thing. You are too." "No. I just want to see the perfect blood flame willpower. I want to verify my life's worth of learning. And that businesswoman will never be able to do it in her entire life." The scene of the public channel was transmitted to the mission window through Cat Eye's shared perspective. An impactful answer. This caused Papercut to only send out a dumbstruck emoji. Then, Ran Hong's seemingly unintentional counterattack caused Papercut to be unable to hold back from sending out a voice message. F***CK, these guys. Oh my god. Cat Eyes also sent a message. "The Blood Flame Order is so awesome. Do you know about the He clan?" Shuele could only send an "I'm confused" emoji. Who is this person? What's that Thai control faction? Papercut kindly introduced Ran Hong's identity to him and said, "The Binding Control faction is a branch of the Blood Flame Order. It involves the interpretation of the Blood Flame Order's teachings. It's rather complicated, so I'm not too clear on it. But all you need to know is that the Blood Flame Order of Xia City and this control faction are absolutely mortal enemies. As he spoke, Papercut was puzzled. This bro Tianbang is too direct. Is it really all right to discuss the matters of a secret order in public? He's an active general. He Yueyin explained. At the end of the 80s, the Restraint faction had already cooperated deeply with the military and participated in many experimental missions. It's just that their secret rank is very high, but their reputation isn't that prominent. I've had dealings with Tianbang before, but I didn't know that he had such a close relationship with this branch. Then what is this now? He Yueyin didn't reply. It was impossible to determine whether this operation was a continuation of the hatred between the Blood Flame Order's factions or a request from the military for in-depth experiments. Or perhaps it was something else. At this time, the public channel was on the right track. Tianbang displayed a magnanimous attitude. Right now, we must capture the remains of the human-faced arachnid. You're the expert. Everything will be done according to your wishes.
Ren Hong sneered. Your words are piled with the stench of burning the bridge after crossing the river.
Hey, as a member of the Restraint faction, isn't inviting you to control them the greatest sincerity? I hope so. The conversation between the two continued in a tense and subtle atmosphere. Most of it was due to the influence of the human-faced arachnid. And at this time, the main culprit who exerted this pressure was evaluating the new information. This is one of Tianbang's trump cards. The wraith sign's sharp claws plucked at the stars, touching upon the window to the bottom of the target's heart. It was like playing with a glass ball. The situation is becoming clearer and clearer. We should let the Blood Flame Order enter the battlefield faster. The more hasty the response from both sides, the more advantageous it is for us. It's decided. Luo Nan's eager will lead the wraith sign's actions. The wraith sign circled several more times on the mental plane. It saw an opportunity and suddenly launched. An unobstructed and ruthless aura rose like a hurricane from nowhere. Ran Hong was operating his spell in the underground parking lot, continuing to strengthen his connection with the Blood Soul Temple. Suddenly, an earth-shattering disaster came over there. Found it. Oh no! The wraith sign's killing intent surged in the boundary between the mental and the material, tearing apart the sacred space created by Ran Hong's spell. Ren Hong raised his head fiercely. His eyes, strengthened by the spell, could already see the human-faced arachnid baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. The distance between the two was extremely close, so close that it broke through the bottom line of his mind. Ren Hong looked at the wraith shadow pouncing at him in a daze. He actually lost the ability to react for a time. In the next moment, a blazing white wall of fire rose between him and the human-faced arachnid. It scorched the air and burned through space. The format of fire. The human-faced arachnid suddenly vanished. It was as if Ren Hong had just woken up from a dream. His left hand instantly raised to his chest, pressing down on the irregular stone talisman outside his priest robe. At the same time he shouted loudly, "It's attacking me! Tie it down!" In the frontline command center, Tianbang's figure turned from stillness to pounce out. He didn't run towards the main door. Instead, he crashed straight into the outer glass curtain wall. As the glass shards splashed and fell, a human figure ran madly along the nearly vertical curtain wall. Whether it was an ability user or a burner, they all loved to take this kind of shortcut in the metropolis. Tianbang no longer had any confidence in the effectiveness of the mental smoke from the confrontation on the mental plane. However, the format of fire should be different. Do you want to follow? Cat Eyes sent Luo Nan a private message once more. Luo Nan didn't respond. Right now the area his consciousness touched was gushing with flames, warping the boundary between the material plane and the mental plane. The 5 deep blue walkers were all experienced warriors. Their reactions were nearly synchronized in the face of this sudden crisis. Their combined attack technique revealed a powerful sense of order. While simultaneously warping the material plane and the mental plane, they also had the ability to shape. They built a firm domain barrier that was both offensive and defensive. It was practically the bane of the chaos-type human-faced arachnid. However, the human-faced arachnid they were facing right now was the Wraith Sign. It was a special existence controlled by Luo Nan's consciousness. Behind the appearance of chaos, there was actually a strict framework of order that supported it. There were layers of depth that were hard to imagine.
The Wraith rune climbed on the floating curtain, and like a spider with thin threads, it easily switched the depth of the mental plane. The shallow zone, the middle zone. Then it jumped back to the shallow zone.
In this process of going back and forth, the Wraith sign had already scanned the strict barrier of the format of fire from several dozen different angles.
Perhaps it could be described like this. Under the three-dimensional perspective, no matter how tightly the lines were piled up, it was still nothing more than a sheet of paper. The demonic eyes were radiant with color and the 6 colors were bewildering. An incorporeal attack pierced out from the extreme depths of the mental plane. It pierced through the flames as if it was piercing through an illusory bubble. Then came the attack that shocked the soul. Siege Hammer. A deep blue walker froze in a daze. He suddenly sank into unconsciousness, turning into a meaningless steel sculpture. He was no longer able to provide the output of the format of fire. A corner of the curtain of fire warped and shattered in an instant. The high level of order was warped, forcing the other 4 deep blue walkers to readjust the order of their joint attack. But the flaw had already appeared. How difficult would it be to readjust it? The flames of the underground parking lot dimmed quite a bit in an instant. The specter of the human-faced arachnid was already extremely close to the material plane.
It flashed within the flames, stepping over the raging flames of the format of fire in a nearly mocking manner.
Ah! Fear dominated Ren Hong's movements. His left hand, which had been holding the protective stone slip, suddenly increased its strength, crushing the precious object in his palm to pieces. In an instant, a blood-like thickness and blood-colored radiance flowed out from the cracks of his fingers. The surrounding temperature was actually able to suddenly rise another chunk from the high temperature of the format of fire. The skin and flesh of Ren Hong's palms and fingers were burned to the point of lacerating. But from his perspective, it was still worth it. The air was severely warped, and the distortion was even greater on the mental plane. The high-temperature bloody radiance formed a new and powerful source of interference. The mental curtain that the Wraith sign had hooked earlier swayed and drifted, causing a deviation in the originally chaotic and orderly structure. It affected the Wraith sign's instant positioning. Ren Hong seized this opportunity. His left hand, which was lacerated with flesh, pressed down. He raised his right hand and formed a seal on his lower abdomen. Then he stomped down heavily with one foot, causing the cement floor to split open with a bang. Leaping spiritual radiance sputtered out from the cracks. It was dyed by the bloody radiance that flowed out from the cracks of his fingers, turning it blood red in an instant. Blood, blood, blood. Fire, fire, fire. The praises of hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people gushed out wrapped in spiritual radiance. Ren Hong slowly knelt on the ground. With a pious posture, he placed the seals formed by his hands down. His palms stuck to the ground and his waist bent down as if he was performing a great salute. The Wraith sign was just about to reorganize its attack, but it was stifled. The Blood Soul Temple within buzzed and trembled. It seemed as if the tip of a pen was scratching on the craggy structure of the mountain. It advanced from bottom to top, layer by layer, transforming into runes. The runes were internalized and quickly formed an enormous restraining force. 80 kilometers away, Luo Nen frowned slightly. Some extremely active elements followed the Blood Soul Temple, followed the Wraith sign, and seeped into the interior of Luo Nan's sealed system. Then it began to grow wildly. Chapter 419. Under the catalysis of Ren Hong's spell power, the Blood Soul Temple underwent a reshaping type of growth. Luo Nan did not know the origins of the protective talisman that Ren Hong crushed. A large amount of highly condensed spell power was accumulated inside. It was used as a seed, and it utilized a secret technique to absorb large amounts of faith power from the believers of the Order through the earth and soil. After being controlled and transformed, the faith power was poured into the Blood Soul Temple in an unending stream. Luo Nan did not understand the specific operating rules, but he could see that the mountain structure of the Blood Soul Temple had become more exquisite and natural. The 4 buildings on top of it grew more magnificent and dignified. As the Blood Soul Temple grew in turmoil, its absorption and devouring of the chaotic power of the Wraith sign became more and more unbridled. It seemed that the parasitic process of several dozen days was about to come to an end. It was currently fusing the human-faced arachnid's power into its own, attempting to devour it and replace its body. Was it not going to walk the remaining several hundred steps of the path of blood and fire? Or could it be said that Ren Hong's rebellion was because he saw another golden path that could forge a perfect sacrificial artifact without going through the human-faced arachnid? Luo Nan did not know what Ren Hong was thinking. But he did know that the effects of this method on his own closed system were quite obvious. It was so obvious that the other believer could sense it. Cat Eyes took the initiative to contact him. "Hey, is the line disturbed? It's very noisy." "Ignore it." Luo Nan urged the human-faced arachnid to rapidly jump within the two-way warped mental screen, leaving the material plane in an instant. The bodyguard, the deep blue walker, lost his connection to the human-faced arachnid and immediately reported, "Target lost." Tian Bang. "Not yet." Ren Hong's hands firmly clasped the rubble in front of his knees, ensuring the stability of the psychic wave radiation. Sweat trickled down his forehead and cheeks, but a smile had already bloomed on his face. "I've locked onto it." "It's locked on too." Luo Nan also confirmed this point. He had already leapt into the middle zone, and he was far away from all devices and mental senses through the warping effect of the mental screen. However, Ren Hong's incantation magic power continued to pour in through the shepherd's channel. Most importantly, the Blood Soul Temple released the element of blood flame as it absorbed energy endlessly. It attempted to assimilate everything in the surroundings to aid in the digestion. It was like red ink in a pool of water. It was not that easy to dilute. Unexpectedly, the contamination was spreading. The Wraith sign was very important within Luo Nan's closed system. It occupied the highest position within all of Luo Nan's believers. It was able to make Luo Nan's power more efficient. And through coupling and other exquisite and subtle functional relationships, it was constantly linked with other believers, transforming into an enormous production line. It produced an unending stream of soul strength, providing abundant supplies for Luo Nan. At this time, one link of the production line was contaminated. In theory, it was possible that the entire production line would be affected. Well, in theory. Luo Nan's mentality was very stable. At this moment, he could see the benefits of seclusion at home last weekend. He already had a relatively clear understanding of the entire formatting theory system. He was using a transcendent perspective to assess the situation. This was because Luo Nan's status in this system was that of a factory owner. In other words, the analogy of pool and red ink was also very appropriate. In an interconnected pool system, the red ink in the upstream pool would pollute the downstream pool, but no matter what, it would be very difficult to go upstream and pollute the source. Luo Nan was the source of the pool system. He was the factory owner who could shut down the production line at any time. Within the closed system he built, this determined the difference between a superior and inferior position. It determined the absolute control that Luo Nan enjoyed. Even though the power of the Blood Soul Temple followed the internal connections of the closed system and spread endlessly, it was unable to corrode Luo Nan himself no matter what. As for Luo Nan, what he needed to do was very simple. He pressed down with a clear and distinct will, directly severing the coupling connection between the Wraith sign and the other believers. He made the Wraith sign independent. The expansion momentum of the Blood Soul Temple's power was easily severed. It was locked within the Wraith sign's main body area, erasing the last bit of theoretical possibility. The Blood Soul Temple was still engulfing and assimilating the Wraith sign. Under Ren Hong's full power, the momentum was quite fierce. However, this vice oblatum of the Blood Flame Order never realized from beginning to end that the Blood Soul Temple, which he had entrusted his heart's blood and sweat, had already suffered a crushing defeat on a certain level. This was the isolation of the system, the suppression of the hierarchy. When the Wraith sign occupied the magpie's nest, it silently seized the embryonic state of the Blood Soul Temple. This was the result that was destined. Even if the mountain was towering and lofty, how could it compare to the heavens? Right now, the only problem left was the Wraith sign. The Blood Soul Temple's erosion of the Wraith sign continued. It was like retribution for the Wraith sign taking over the mold's nest. Of course, Luo Nan had to control this, but now was not the time. The restless Blood Soul Temple was the real bait. Although Ran Hong's methods were quite effective, the turbulence created on the level of the Blood Soul Temple was far too obvious. It attracted the attention of many related consciousnesses. Luo Nan's closed system senses, including his superior position, just happened to be able to capture all of this. He omitted the meaningless details and traced it in reverse, just like how he had sensed Mrs. Holder before. He drew a few extension lines on the outline of the Blood Soul Temple. It was like drawing auxiliary lines in a plane geometry exercise. It's a very simple assignment. Then I'll get the answer. 1, 2. No, it was a set of twin figures. The Blood Soul Temple was the foundation, extending outwards. The closest one was Ren Hong. Then it split. A portion involved Tian Bang and a few related people. There was another portion that extended 30 kilometers away. The aura over there was much more familiar. It was clearly Mrs. Holder and the other core members of the Blood Flame Order of Xia City. Of course, this was just physical distance. It was the result of abstraction on the mental plane. The psychic wave figures formed by these two groups of people were actually quite similar. One glance was enough to tell that they came from the same source. The situation is becoming clearer and clearer. Luo Nan's mind grew calmer and calmer. His train of thought began to spring up. In comparison, the Xia City branch of the Blood Flame Order passed through their time in a state of restlessness and depression in the decompression gym 30 kilometers away. Due to their understanding of the Order's techniques, they were able to roughly guess Ren Hong's methods from the feedback from the Blood Soul Temple. Emo Luan's gloomy thoughts filled the air. That traitor no longer has any misgivings. Lu was even more urgent. She pressed her hand against her chest and faced Mrs. Holder, strongly declaring her position. Boss, let me do it. I can cut off the psychic channel. I absolutely won't let Ren Hong succeed. And then let all the believers be at a loss as to what to do? If we let them succeed, we'll lose everything. So you want to destroy all the resonators of the blood flame, will? Destroy the foundation of the Order's existence? Mrs. Holder stared straight at Lu, successfully making her speechless. On the other side, Jiang Yuanjun was still hopping mad. Then what should we do? Our molds were taken away by others just like that? Those shameless separatists. Traitors. Mrs. Holder turned around. She looked at the blurry and lagging projection of information. Several seconds later she spoke softly. Let's leave first. Ha! Jiang Yuanjun didn't hear clearly at first. Mrs. Holder changed her words. We must first cut our losses. We must avoid a crisis that could topple us. Cut our losses? How do we cut our losses? We'll leave Xia City for now. What kind of joke is this? Jiang Yuanjun really exploded. Are you crazy? We haven't even figured out the situation yet, and you want to run? Give up all these years of operation and run? There's no worse situation than the present. Mrs. Holder's tone was calm and without ripples. Old Jiang, you watched Ren Hong grow up. He's also the most outstanding talent the Order has nurtured in recent years. Don't you trust his judgment? Ha! When it comes to the way Ren Hong conducts himself, he doesn't have any weaknesses that can be used against him. Given his shrewdness and meticulousness, things like betrayal don't happen. But once they do, there must be a sufficient reason. Perhaps the other party has a closer relationship with the military. Perhaps the other party's prospects for development are broader. But in any case, there must be an enormous disparity in power between the two sides. That's why he made up his mind. Jiang Yuanjun chuckled twice. He wanted to retort that this was all conjecture, but when the words reached his mouth, he suddenly felt dispirited. What Mrs. Holder said was very likely. Ren Hong's temperament was just like that. Mrs. Holder's gaze swept across everyone. Jiang Yuanjun's mind was absent-minded. Yin Li's mind was restless. Meng Chong's face was expressionless. Wu Kuei shrunk into a corner without a sound. As for Mo Luan, she didn't need to care about him. Mrs. Holder sighed softly and continued, I believe that everyone has the resolve to sacrifice their lives for the Order. But as the first oblatum, the continuation of the orthodoxy and the preservation of our vitality will always be our #1 priority. Besides, we have 3 shepherds. As long as the foundation of the herding law doesn't change, we will always have a chance. It doesn't matter if we're in Xia City or not. Jiang Yuanjun wasn't so easily convinced. But I agree with the first oblatum's judgment.
Black smoke curled up in spirals in the void. A low and fine voice seemed to seep out from within. Emoluen's soul body of black smoke was decades old. He practically represented the highest combat power of the Blood Flame Order. His sudden appearance naturally attracted everyone's gazes. However, what people paid more attention to was his attitude. Emoluen said, "Ever since the upheaval of the Order, the First Oblatum has repeatedly proven that her line of thought is correct. She hasn't made any major mistakes to this day." No one could refute this point. The mold was a genius idea. According to the First Oblatum's common saying, she found a good project worth investing in. We invested for this and made it to a certain scale. Then, competitors appeared. They directly poached people, stole products, and even used military and political power to destroy bodies. Although it's despicable, it's absolutely impossible to do it without overwhelming strength. We have no chance of victory in a direct clash. Mrs. Holder bowed slightly towards the black smoke in the room to express her thanks. But when her gaze swept across the room, she suddenly frowned. At this moment, the black smoke curled up, faintly forming the silhouette of Emoluen's figure. Emoluen's words jumped. "In terms of concrete implementation, I have a suggestion." Chapter 420. Right now, a normal investment project has been turned into a hostile takeover by the other party. However, we still hold a certain amount of shares. We can make some changes and turn it into a bet. We'll bet on the ownership of the sacrificial artifact in the future. Elder Emoluen. Madame Holder's eyes focused and locked onto the coiling black smoke in front of her. From her point of view, this was just a variant of Jiang Yuenzhen and Yin Li's irrational argument. We no longer have the capital to raise the stakes. Yes, I do. I just need a little. The shadow of the black smoke soul body pointed at itself. I'm enough. No. Yin Lu and Jiang Yuenzhen spoke up at the same time. Yin Lu didn't really understand what Emoluen meant by bet, but that didn't prevent her from understanding his resolute intentions. She pressed down hard on her chest, almost crushing her heart. You are the Order's stabilizing force. No matter what we do, we can't let you charge ahead. You bunch of people. Jiang Yuenzhen clenched her fists and waved them as if she was fighting someone. You're making things complicated. Complicated? That's a dream you'll live in forever. An angry rebuke suddenly rose from the black smoke, instantly subduing everyone present. The entire room sank into silence, and the atmosphere froze. After the roar, the condensed black smoke began to drift away. The figure gradually faded, and Emoluen's voice seemed as soft as smoke. I only have a smattering of the efficient's investment theory. But I know that without a sacrificial artifact or an extraordinary, the Blood Flame Order can't transcend the secular world. Only by following the efficient's train of thought can we continue to exist in this world and continuously accumulate power. Jiang Yuenzhen pointed at the black smoke, but in the end, she retracted her arm and clenched her fists. When she opened her mouth again, her voice was hoarse. I've never opposed it. But is the Order's sacrificial artifact an orthodox inheritance also an investment? Or can we withdraw and break even to prevent losses? Madame Holder didn't reply. Emoluen actually laughed. I don't think about this kind of problem. But you specialize in theory. You should study it further. In a sense, this is your responsibility. At this point, Emoluen turned his attention to Lady Holder. Lord Officiant, I agree to retreat, but things happened too quickly. My body is still immersed in the frozen liquid and can't move. It will take some time for it to thaw. Madame Holder shook her head. According to the relevant contingency plans, we have a complete evacuation plan. The relevant vehicle is right next to your seclusion room. It will only take 15 minutes for the transfer to be completed, and it will last for more than 7 days. By that time we had reached Tyre and settled down again. We can start now. As he spoke, a new wave of information refreshed, and the intelligence peddler took out even more valuable information. He had secretly hacked into the building's surveillance system and borrowed the surveillance camera in a corner of the underground parking lot to spy on the area in the distance.
From the surveillance screen, one could see a blood-red spiritual light spurting out from the end of the dark domain, as well as a slight spatial tremor. Jiang Yuanjun muttered, "It has already reached this level." In the next moment, it was as if he had woken up from a dream. Anger once again dominated his thoughts. He is pulling up seedlings to help them grow. If he continues to forge the blood-fire path like this, the foundation of the Blood Soul Temple will be destroyed by him. Lady Halder looked at the projection and said softly, "Perhaps he has an even better idea."
"What, boss?"
Enlu felt the violent tremors coming from the mold. Combining it with the surveillance screen, she had already made a judgment. Ren Hong is forcefully transferring the priority of the shepherd. If we do not follow up, the Blood Soul Temple will be his in 20 minutes. Meng Chong, who had been standing solemnly, spoke for the first time. His voice was heavy. Ren Hong has been overdrawing on the believer's psyche power. This way, even if we want to counterattack in the future, we will not be able to gather enough psyche power for the ritual in a short period of time. Jiang Yuanjun gasped. If he is ruthless enough, he will continue to make this kind of consumption, forever maintaining the first move advantage. Lord Officiant. Madame Halder didn't say a word, but without any warning, she waved her arm towards where Imoluan's black smoke soul body was. Her fingertips brushed past, and the black smoke disappeared, leaving only nothingness. Enlu and the others were stunned. In the next moment, Imoluan's voice echoed in the nothingness. The basic purpose of the bet is to know all their cards. Ren Hong, Tianbang, and what else? Enlu suddenly came to a realization and ordered through her wristband, "Connect Elder Imoluan to the seclusion room." A minute later, the security personnel outside sent a message, trembling with fear. It was unknown when, but the personnel in charge of daily service and security work beside Elder Mo Luan had all fainted. The relevant scene was also transmitted back at the same time. It was taken after the robot had entered the seclusion area. It could be seen that the door of the seclusion room under layers of defense was opened, and the frozen liquid pool inside was already empty. Jiang Yuanjun groaned, "Blood flame above! Blood flame above!" Ran Hong knelt in the protection area of the incantation. Although his spirit was excited, his physical strength was close to exhaustion. He was an outstanding blood flame priest, and he had a deep understanding of the mold and the subtle changes in the Blood Soul Temple. It is currently not normal, and its instinct to avoid danger is too strong. It is a chaotic species, and should not react to the changes in its body. Tianbang's high-speed descent was about to end, and the current situation was still under control. He was in the mood to chat. "I feel that guy's intelligence is not normal." "It has no intelligence." "Is that so?" "I don't care about the conclusions of your research, but I saw that this guy attacked several times, and every time it hit the weak point. It hit the sore spot, and it came and went at will. It made the well-trained deep blue walkers lose face. What kind of monster have you raised with your herding?" "It is a mold, a mold." "All right, mold." Tianbang's voice suddenly cut off, and his gaze focused on the bottom of the building. The traffic was piled up there, and because the security department had already restricted access, the underground parking lot could only be left, but not entered. It was quite chaotic. And there was a person coming out of a taxi amidst the chaotic flow of people and traffic. He was dressed in very formal attire, like a white-collar worker returning to work overtime. But his pace was sluggish, and he still had the leisure to look up after coming out of the congested traffic. His gaze streaked across the glass curtain wall of Aurora Cloud City, and also across the blurred intersection of light and shadow, and the rapidly descending Tianbang. The two's gazes intersected, and they saw each other's faces. The person downstairs looked to be a middle-aged man in his 50s. His figure was thin, and his face was pale, as if he was ill. But there was clearly a flame burning in his pupils. The flame had also left a clear mark on the mental plane. Everyone flipped the cards, or flipped the table. Tianbang's eyebrows twitched, more impulsive than expected, and better at finding opportunities. In just a moment of distraction, all that was left was the meaningless street scene below. The person had already entered the building, and his aura was immediately concealed. Tianbang let out a breath and spoke through the public channel. "Moluan is here. Have you prepared the plan?" "He came in a taxi." The frontline command center immediately exploded, activating E-Plan, Mo Luan's body condition monitoring, codenamed Onyx Soul. Team 5, Team 6 control the underground area. Long-range attacks are the first priority. Team 5 in position. Onyx Soul in position. Onyx Soul has entered the first floor of the underground parking lot. Yin-Yang Eye System, turn on. This Yin-Yang Eye System was a monitoring device that integrated many different wave detection. It did not have many methods to deal with spirit bodies, but as long as there was a physical body, the effect was still all right. Currently, what appeared on the front finger center screen were mostly transparent human figures, representing normal people. The spirit waves emitted by the burners and ability users on their side were displayed in green light. And in this background, there was a blurry red. Disappeared. Tian Bang looked at the monitoring screen from afar, and his eyelids twitched. Hey! Determined that Onyx Soul is moving at high speed. System delay. All entrances and exits have been sealed, unable to determine if Onyx Soul has entered the spirit body state. Ding! This was the electronic sound of the elevator in position. Even though they knew that the target would not take the elevator, but in this sudden situation, the tactical squad that was searching nearby instinctively turned their guns. When the elevator door opened, a pair of affectionate couples appeared. Yeah. The two faces instantly became frightened. The man sat on the ground, and the woman curled up and screamed. The scene was an awkward scene. Why is the elevator not locked? It's already locked, but the control system malfunctioned just now. Tian Bang followed the path that Emo Luan took to enter the building, and followed along. This is not strange. During Emo Luan's third war, he was a mechanic soldier. This is just a joke. Also, he told us that the evacuation work was done badly. Perhaps, Emo Luan did not mind using this point. This sentence, Tian Bang did not say it out loud. At this moment, on the first floor of the underground parking lot, the soldier in charge of the search mission stepped on an area. The touch was very subtle, very soft. Walala! The melted reinforced concrete collapsed, and there was an even more muffled sound below. A hole about 60 centimeters in diameter appeared on the floor. Did it sink from here? There seems to be more below. The tactical flashlight's beam pierced down, all the way to the third underground floor. Is this an Earth escape? The deputy in charge of the tactical deployment said with a sneer, and then confirmed, Fragrant Bait 3 is certainly his primary target. 6th underground floor. Pay attention. Yes, Senior Colonel. 6th underground floor, under the blood-red spirit light, Ren Hongmu was expressionless. In the next moment, his forehead touched the ground, and he used an even more focused posture to lead the process of the ceremony. The rumbling sound of the Deep Blue Walker's engine reverberated in the underground space, and the aftermath was introduced, causing dust to rustle and fall. In the darkness, Emo Luan's hand held onto a pillar, and he looked at the back of his own hand with protruding joints. The veins on the surface were exposed, and there was a layer of dense sweat. Fortunately, there were no age spots and the like that commonly seen at this age. Often in the freezing liquid pool, his body's appearance was well maintained, and he was even a bit younger than his actual age. But the situation under the skin, only he knew. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.